What if everything you've been taught about success is actually working against you? In a world that constantly shouts more is better, more money, more followers, more achievements, it's easy to believe that winning means accumulating as much as possible. But what if the secret to true victory lies not in having more, but in needing less? This idea isn't new. It's ancient wisdom, echoed by the Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius when he wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life." That simple statement holds a profound and counterintuitive truth. The less we require from the outside world to feel content, the more freedom and power we actually possess. Stoicism, a philosophy practiced by some of history's most resilient minds, offers a radical redefinition of what it means to win. It isn't about beating others or stacking up external validations. Instead, winning becomes an internal game, one centered on tranquility, self-mastery, and unshakable resilience. Think about it. How often have you seen someone who seems to have it all, yet still feels restless, insecure, or unsatisfied? Compare that to someone who lives simply, who finds joy in moments rather than monuments, and who remains steady even when life turns turbulent. That contrast lies at the heart of Stoic thought. It teaches us that real strength doesn't come from what we own, but from what we can let go of. In this video, we'll explore how embracing principles like detachment, voluntary discomfort, and what the Stoics called the inner citadel can completely shift your understanding of success. We'll see why needing less doesn't mean settling for less. It means equipping yourself with a deeper kind of wealth, one that can't be taken away. This isn't about deprivation, it's about liberation. It's about building a life where you're no longer tossed around by external circumstances, but anchored in something far more enduring, your own character. So if you've ever felt like you're running on a treadmill of desire, always chasing but never quite arriving, then you're in the right place. Let's begin this journey into the Stoic art of winning by wanting less. Most of us have been handed a very specific blueprint for success from a young age. It tells us that winning looks like a corner office, a luxury car, a packed schedule, and the admiration of a crowd. But what if that blueprint is fundamentally flawed? The ancient Stoics proposed a radically different way to keep score in life. For them, true victory wasn't about conquering external territories. It was about mastering the internal landscape of your own mind. Winning, in the Stoic sense, is measured not by what you acquire, but by the quality of your character and the peace you cultivate within, regardless of your circumstances. It's a victory that can't be seen on a balance sheet, but it can be felt in every moment of your existence. This philosophy hinges on a few core metrics that are entirely within our control. The first is tranquility, a state of inner calm and freedom from turbulent emotions like anxiety, envy, or rage. The second is virtue, which to the Stoics meant living with wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline. And the third is self-control, the power to choose your response rather than being a slave to every impulse or external event. A Stoic wins when they act with integrity in the face of temptation, when they remain calm amidst chaos, and when they choose what is right over what is easy. This is a victory that no one can take from you because it doesn't depend on anything outside of yourself. The Roman philosopher Seneca saw the endless pursuit of external validation as a form of madness. He wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." This single line shatters the illusion that accumulation leads to fulfillment. A person might own palaces and yet be impoverished in spirit, constantly worried about losing what they have or obsessed with getting more. Their wealth becomes a prison of their own making, a source of anxiety rather than freedom. They are always running but never arriving because the finish line of enough keeps moving. Now picture two individuals. The first has immense wealth, a high-status career, and a life filled with luxury. Yet they are perpetually anxious, constantly comparing themselves to others, and terrified of failure. They win in the eyes of the world, but they are losing the battle for their own peace of mind. Contrast that with someone who lives a simple, minimalist life. They may not have vast possessions, but they possess something far more valuable: deep contentment. They find joy in simple pleasures. Their self-worth isn't tied to their job title, and they sleep soundly at night. By the Stoic definition, who is the real winner? The answer is clear. The person who needs less from the world to be happy is in fact the most powerful. This invites a deeply personal question. If you were to strip away all the noise, the societal expectations, the advertising, the pressure to keep up, what would winning actually look like for you? Is it a feeling of unshakable calm that you carry throughout your day? Is it the pride that comes from knowing you acted with courage and kindness when it was difficult? Or is it the freedom that arises from not being emotionally yanked around by every gain and loss? Take a moment to truly consider this. Your honest answer might just reveal the first step toward a more meaningful and victorious life, one defined not by what you have, but by who you are. Wanting less isn't deprivation, it's liberation. This might sound like a paradox in a culture that constantly encourages us to crave more, but from a Stoic perspective, it's the fundamental key to unlocking a life of genuine freedom and resilience. The ancient teacher Epictetus, who was born into slavery and understood true powerlessness, laid the groundwork for this idea with one of Stoicism's most powerful tools: the distinction between what is within our control and what is not. He taught that our actions, our judgments, and our desires are within our sphere of command, while everything else, our reputation, our wealth, our health, the actions of others, ultimately is not. The root of our suffering, he argued, isn't found in external events themselves, but in our desires that cling to those externals as if they were permanent and essential to our happiness. Epictetus put it bluntly when he said, "We suffer not from the events in our lives, but from our judgments about them." And our judgments are so often clouded by endless wanting. When we desire something outside our control, we hand over the keys to our emotional state. We make ourselves vulnerable. If your happiness depends on getting a promotion, you are at the mercy of your boss's decision. If your peace relies on your partner always acting a certain way, you've given them the power to disrupt your tranquility. Every desire for an external becomes a potential point of failure, a hook that life can snag to pull you off balance. But when you consciously reduce those desires, you start to retract those hooks. You are less easily snagged, less easily thrown into turmoil by the inevitable changes and challenges of life. Consider the practical strength this brings. Imagine two people facing the same sudden job loss. The first has built an identity and a sense of security entirely on their title and salary. Their desires are tied to a certain lifestyle, a specific social status. This loss feels catastrophic, a personal failure that shatters their world. The second person, however, has practiced the Stoic art of minimal desires. They certainly enjoyed their job and the income, but their core sense of worth was not dependent on it. They desired to act with integrity, to do good work, and to learn things entirely within their control. The loss of the job is a practical challenge, but not an existential crisis. They are resilient because they have fewer dependencies on external circumstances to feel okay. Their freedom was never stored in that office, it was always within them. This resilience transforms your relationship with the world. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of fortune and start becoming an active participant who can adapt and thrive regardless of what happens. The goal isn't to want nothing, but to want wisely, to desire only that which you can truly govern, your own character, your efforts, your virtues. This is the liberation. It's the freedom that comes from knowing that no matter what life takes away, it cannot touch the things you have decided are most important. So where can you start practicing this liberation today? It begins with a single, conscious choice. Look at your life and identify one non-essential desire you can reduce. Maybe it's the desire for constant social validation, refreshing your phone for likes and comments. Perhaps it's the desire for a newer car when your current one functions perfectly well. It could even be the desire for a perfectly quiet house to get work done, a condition life with children or noisy neighbors rarely meets. Choose one, notice the pull it has on you, and then make the intentional decision to loosen its grip. See what happens when you tell yourself, "I will be fine without this." In that small act of release, you might just feel the first real taste of a much larger freedom. How often does your attachment to a specific outcome actually sabotage the very thing you're trying to achieve? That nervous desperation to win the deal, to get the perfect reaction, to force a particular result, it has a funny way of tightening our grip until we crush the thing we're holding. Stoicism offers a powerful antidote to this self-defeating cycle with a principle known as cognitive detachment. This isn't about apathy or not caring. It's about shifting your primary focus from the result, which is often outside your control, to your effort and intention, which are always within your command. It's the difference between playing to win and playing with excellence, trusting that the outcome will take care of itself. This philosophy is deeply tied to the beautiful Stoic concept of Amor Fati, a love of fate. It's the practice of not just accepting whatever happens, but embracing it as the necessary outcome of a universe that is unfolding as it should. Amor Fati asks us to pour our absolute best into our actions while simultaneously releasing our white-knuckled grip on how things must turn out. We act with integrity, with virtue, and with full commitment, and then we welcome the result, whatever it may be, as the raw material for our continued growth. It's about trusting the process so completely that you can accept the product, even if it looks different from what you imagined. Marcus Aurelius constantly reinforced this mindset in his private writings, reminding himself to accept whatever happens. Whatever it is, it's by nature already familiar to you, already woven into the pattern of your destiny. He wasn't suggesting passive resignation. As emperor, he was one of the most active men in history. He was advocating for a mental shift. Do your work, your sacred duty, with everything you have, and then accept the outcome with equanimity because you have already won by acting rightly. The victory was in the virtuous effort, not in the external reward. You can see this principle in action with elite athletes. The very best performers often describe entering a flow state during their peak moments. In that state, they aren't thinking about the trophy, the scoreboard, or the cheering crowd. Their mind is completely absorbed in the mechanics of their craft, the feel of the ball, their breathing, the execution of the move they've practiced 10,000 times. Their attachment is to the quality of their effort in this very moment, not to the final score. Paradoxically, this intense focus on the process, this detachment from the win-loss column, is precisely what creates the conditions for victory. The moment they become obsessed with winning is the moment they start to choke, to overthink, and to fail. Now bring this down to earth in your own life. Think about a recent situation where you felt intense pressure to achieve a specific outcome. Maybe it was a crucial job interview, a difficult conversation you needed to have, or a creative project you were pouring your heart into. How much of your mental energy was spent anxiously picturing the perfect result? How much fear did you feel about the possibility of it not working out? Now, imagine how your approach might have shifted if you had practiced cognitive detachment. If your entire goal had been simply to show up fully, to express yourself honestly, and to perform your part with integrity regardless of the response. That shift doesn't lower your standards, it liberates your performance. It allows you to access your best self without the static of anxiety and neediness. The effort becomes its own reward, and any positive outcome that follows feels like a gracious bonus, not the sole source of your validation. The great Stoic thinkers didn't just philosophize about resilience from the comfort of a library. They actively trained for it by stepping directly into the path of life's hardships. Seneca, a man of immense wealth and influence in ancient Rome, would deliberately choose to wear worn-out clothing and sleep on a hard bed for days at a time. He would eat plain, simple food and even expose himself to the cold. Why would a man who could afford any luxury willingly choose such austerity? He was practicing what the Stoics called ascesis, a form of disciplined training for the soul, not unlike an athlete training their body for a competition. This voluntary discomfort wasn't a form of self-punishment. It was a strategic inoculation against the fragility that comfort can create. By regularly experiencing small, manageable doses of hardship, they built up an immunity to the fear of loss and the shock of adversity. They understood that a life spent chasing only pleasure and avoiding all pain makes a person soft, anxious, and desperately needy, constantly terrified that fortune might take away the very comforts they've become dependent on. Seneca captured the immense power of this practice perfectly when he advised, "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared?' This is the ultimate goal, to actively confront the very scenarios we most fear in our minds and discover, through direct experience, that we are far stronger than we imagined. By preparing for poverty, you learn that you can handle it, which paradoxically allows you to truly enjoy your wealth without being enslaved by the anxiety of losing it. Your possessions become things you have, not things you need for your happiness. This practice dismantles neediness at its core, replacing it with a profound and unshakable confidence in your own ability to cope and adapt. This ancient wisdom finds powerful expression in our modern world. The cold shower you might dread taking first thing in the morning is a direct form of ascesis. It's a small, daily victory over your desire for comfort, a reminder that you can choose to do something difficult simply because it is difficult, and in doing so, you strengthen your will. A digital detox where you voluntarily turn off the constant stream of notifications and entertainment is a practice in enduring the initial boredom and FOMO to reclaim your focus and attention. Even choosing to walk instead of drive, to cook a simple meal instead of ordering takeout, or to have a challenging conversation instead of avoiding it, these are all modern applications of this Stoic art. Each act is a rep for the soul, building mental muscle and reinforcing the liberating truth that your well-being is not contingent on perfect external conditions. The true value of this training is revealed not during the peaceful days, but in the midst of genuine crisis. The person who has never practiced discomfort will be completely overwhelmed when real adversity strikes, like a sailor encountering their first storm without ever having left the harbor. But the person who has voluntarily faced hardship is like a seasoned captain. They've tested their ship and their skills in rough waters before. They know what they and their vessel are capable of enduring. They might not enjoy the storm, but they meet it with resilience, competence, and a calm heart, because they have already proven to themselves that they can handle much more than they thought. This week, I challenge you to integrate this ancient practice into your own life. choose one small, voluntary discomfort. It doesn't have to be dramatic. Perhaps it's taking a 5-minute colder shower than usual, leaving your phone at home during a walk, or skipping a meal and just feeling the sensation of hunger without immediately satisfying it. Observe what happens in your mind. Notice the initial resistance, the voice that says you don't have to do this, and then notice the quiet sense of strength and self-respect that emerges when you do it anyway. That feeling, that quiet victory over yourself, is the beginning of a deeper freedom that no external circumstance can ever take away. Imagine building a fortress so strong within yourself that no external event, no criticism, no financial loss, no sudden change of plans could ever truly breach its walls. This is the powerful Stoic concept of the inner citadel, a mental and spiritual stronghold built not of stone, but of reason, virtue, and disciplined judgment. The Stoics believed that our greatest project in life isn't accumulating things outside of us, but constructing this unshakable inner refuge. When your sense of security and worth is generated from within, you become remarkably self-sufficient. You stop needing constant validation, perfect conditions, or specific outcomes to feel steady and whole. The storms of life might rage outside, but inside the citadel you remain calm, clear, and in command of your own peace. Marcus Aurelius, who faced immense pressures as the Emperor of Rome, constantly returned to this idea in his private meditations. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is the foundational principle of the inner citadel. The strength doesn't come from controlling the world, which is impossible, but from mastering your perceptions and reactions to it. The Stoics built this resilience by rigorously practicing their philosophy. They used reason to dissect frightening impressions, asking, "Is this thing truly within my control?" They fortified themselves with virtue, knowing that acting with courage and justice was a reward in itself, regardless of the result. They trained to need very little from outside themselves, so that the withdrawal of those things, praise, comfort, companionship, would not lead to their collapse. Consider two people facing the exact same major crisis, perhaps an unexpected financial setback that threatens their lifestyle. The first person has built their entire identity and sense of security on their external possessions and status. Their inner world is like a house of cards, beautifully arranged but fragile. When the crisis hits, they panic. They feel victimized, angry, and terrified because their foundation has been pulled out from under them. Their reaction is chaotic and desperate because they have no internal resources to fall back on. Now, observe the second person. They, too, feel the initial shock, and concerned stoicism isn't about becoming emotionless, but because they have been consciously building their inner citadel, their reaction is profoundly different. They retreat into that inner fortress of reason. They assess the situation calmly, separate what they can control from what they cannot, and focus their energy on prudent next steps. Their self-worth isn't tied to their bank account, so while the situation is a practical problem, it is not an existential threat. They remain composed and effective, not because they are special, but because they have invested in the inner resources that allow them to withstand the storm. This contrast reveals the ultimate form of resilience. It isn't about avoiding hardship. It's about having a sanctuary to retreat to when hardship inevitably arrives. Your inner citadel is stocked with the provisions of your own character, your ability to reason, your commitment to your values, your sense of perspective, and the quiet knowledge that you have handled difficult times before. These are resources that no market crash can devalue and no person can take from you. They are the ultimate form of wealth because they are always accessible, exactly when you need them most. So what does your own inner citadel look like? When tough times arrive, what inner resources do you find yourself relying on? Is it your sense of humor that helps you gain perspective? Is it your rational mind that helps you break a problem down into manageable steps? Perhaps it's your deeply held values that guide your actions even when you're afraid. Or maybe it's the memory of past challenges you've already overcome that proves your own resilience to you. Taking stock of these inner strengths isn't just an exercise. It's the very process of reinforcing your walls and ensuring that your fortress remains a place of unshakable peace, no matter what happens outside the gates. Do you often find yourself mentally refreshing your screen after an accomplishment, waiting for the likes, the comments, the shares, needing that external buzz to finally feel like you've truly succeeded? That hunger for validation is one of the most powerful and deceptive drivers of human behavior. We post a photo and measure its worth by the number of hearts it receives. We share a professional achievement and gauge its importance by the volume of congratulatory comments. We tailor our opinions, our purchases, and even our life choices to what will earn the approval of our peers, our family, or the amorphous court of public opinion. But the Stoics identified this chase for external validation as a fundamental trap, a race on a wheel that never stops, where the finish line of enough praise constantly moves just beyond our reach. Stoicism offers a radical and liberating alternative, the unshakable conviction that your self-worth must be generated from within, based on your own character and actions, not mined from the unpredictable and fickle opinions of others. Your value isn't something that others assign to you. It is something you know to be true about yourself through your commitment to living with virtue. When you outsource your sense of worth to other people, you hand them a remote control to your emotions. They can lift you up with a compliment just as easily as they can crush you with a criticism, and you are left powerless, constantly adjusting your behavior in a desperate attempt to please your audience. The Stoic goal is to take that remote back and to become the sole author of your own self-esteem. Epictetus, who knew a thing or two about being undervalued and dismissed by society, provided the ultimate mental framework for this. He said, "If anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said of you, but answer, 'He was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone.'" This isn't about self-deprecation, it's about a profound shift in perspective. It means that the opinions of others become so irrelevant to your core self-concept that you can actually find humor in them. Their praise doesn't inflate you because you already know your own worth, and their criticism doesn't deflate you because you are too busy working on your actual flaws to be bothered by their superficial observations. You are no longer disturbed by their words or actions because you have stopped granting them the authority to define you. We can see the corrosive effect of this chase for validation in the modern landscape of fame. Consider a talented musician or artist who starts their career with a unique, authentic voice. They create from a place of passion and personal truth, and that genuine energy is what initially attracts a loyal audience. But as fame grows, the feedback loop intensifies. They start to notice which songs get the most streams, which posts get the most engagement. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, they begin to shape their art to fit the algorithm, to please the masses, to chase the trends instead of setting them. The unique spark that made them special is gradually sanded down to a polished, generic, and marketable product. They may achieve even greater commercial success, but they often speak in interviews about feeling empty, disconnected from their work, and anxious about maintaining their position. They won the applause of the world but lost the sound of their own inner voice, the very source of their power. Their authenticity was the casualty of their need for external validation. This isn't just a problem for the famous. It's a daily reality for most of us. We perform a version of ourselves on social media, carefully curating a highlight reel designed to elicit a specific reaction. We stay quiet in meetings for fear of saying the wrong thing. We buy things we can't afford to impress people we don't even like. The pursuit of validation is a thirsty endeavor. The more you drink from the cup of others' approval, the thirstier you become. It never truly satisfies because it can't. You are trying to fill an internal void with an external substance, and they are fundamentally incompatible. So where is this playing out in your own life? Take a moment to identify one specific area where you catch yourself habitually seeking external validation. Is it in your career, constantly looking for your manager's praise to feel you've done a good job? Is it in your personal relationships, needing your partner to constantly affirm your choices to feel secure? Maybe it's on social media, where you measure the value of your thoughts by the number of shares they get. Pinpoint that one arena. Just becoming consciously aware of this pattern is the first and most powerful step toward disarming it. The next time you feel that pull, that anxious need for someone else's approval, pause. Remember that the only validation that truly matters, that is enduring and unshakable, is the quiet knowledge that you acted with integrity, did your best, and remained true to your own values. That is a verdict you deliver to yourself, and it is the only one that counts. What if the very act of trying to hold on tight to the things we love is what actually steals the joy they bring? This is the profound paradox that Stoicism addresses with one of its most powerful and surprisingly positive practices, negative visualization, or premeditatio malorum. This translates to the premeditation of evils, but that grim title is misleading. This isn't about pessimism or dwelling on the worst-case scenario out of fear. It is a conscious, rational exercise in embracing the fundamental truth of existence, that nothing, absolutely nothing, is permanent. By regularly and calmly reflecting on the potential loss of the people, possessions, and positions we cherish, we accomplish two transformative things. We dramatically deepen our appreciation for them while they are here, and we systematically dismantle the fear and anxiety that comes from clinging to them as if they were eternal. The Roman philosopher Seneca, a master of capturing life's fleeting beauty, wrote extensively on this theme. He observed, "Whatever can be lost, you should regard as already lost. Whatever is to come, think of it as having an uncertain outcome." At first glance, this might sound bleak, but sit with it for a moment. He isn't advising us to live in a state of perpetual mourning. He is offering a recipe for profound emotional resilience. When you truly internalize that your health, your career, your relationships, and even your own life are temporary gifts on loan from fortune, you stop taking them for granted. You begin to see each day with a loved one, each moment of good health, each period of stability, not as a default setting but as a precious and fleeting miracle. This mindset doesn't create sadness. It generates a vibrant, intense gratitude that makes ordinary moments feel extraordinary. A perfect analogy for this Stoic practice is building a sandcastle on the beach. You pour your creativity and effort into it. You enjoy the process of shaping the towers and digging the moat. You step back and admire your work, finding genuine pleasure in what you've created. But you are building it on the shore, fully aware that the tide is inevitable. A wise builder knows the waves will come. This knowledge doesn't ruin the experience, it enhances it. It makes the building process more focused and joyful because you aren't laboring under the illusion that this castle must stand forever. You don't start yelling at the ocean for being unfair when the first wave approaches. You might even feel a sense of peace and acceptance as your creation is slowly reclaimed by the sea, because you understood and accepted the terms of the game from the very beginning. The problem isn't the temporary nature of the sandcastle. The problem is our delusion that we could ever build a permanent one on a changing shore. Now bring this practice into your own life. I want you to try a brief exercise in negative visualization right now. Think of something you deeply value and perhaps quietly fear losing. It could be your current job, your physical ability to run or hike, the presence of a specific person in your life, or even the comfort of your home. Close your eyes for just a few seconds and vividly imagine that it is gone. Don't do this with panic or dread, but with a calm, observational curiosity. Picture the details of your life without this thing. Notice the feelings that arise. Then open your eyes. See the world around you again. What do you feel? For most people, this immediate shift creates a powerful wave of appreciation. The computer you work on suddenly seems like a marvel of technology. The ability to walk to the kitchen feels like a gift. The voice of your partner in the other room becomes a beautiful sound you realize you get to hear today. This is the magic of premeditatio malorum. It doesn't push us away from the world. It pulls us into a more intimate, grateful, and fearless relationship with it, precisely because we have made peace with its inevitable impermanence. Now, let's shift our focus from the internal practice of reflection to the external environment we create for ourselves. Look around at the world we've built, a constant, buzzing marketplace of desires. Notifications ping, advertisements whisper promises of a better you, and shelves both physical and digital overflow with products claiming to be essential. This is the chaos of modern consumerism, a relentless engine designed to make us feel perpetually behind, perpetually in need of the next upgrade, the next purchase, the next trend. It creates a background noise of lack that is incredibly difficult to think through. Against this frantic backdrop, the Stoic call for a simple life isn't about aesthetic minimalism or living in a bare room. It's a strategic declaration of independence. It's the conscious decision to minimize external distractions and complexities so that you can maximize your focus on the only things that truly matter: your character, your purpose, and your peace. The Stoics weren't against enjoying the comforts of life, but they were fiercely opposed to becoming enslaved by them. They saw unnecessary luxuries and complexities not as upgrades, but as weights, anchors that slow you down and create more points of potential failure and anxiety. A simpler life with fewer possessions and commitments means there is simply less that can go wrong, less that can be taken from you, and less to worry about protecting. This creates a spaciousness both in your physical environment and in your mind that is the absolute prerequisite for deep thought and meaningful action. You can't hear your own inner voice if you're constantly surrounded by a roaring crowd of wants. The Roman Stoic teacher Musonius Rufus, who was known for his incredibly practical and grounded advice, applied this principle directly to something as basic as our diet. He argued that extravagance in food was not just a health issue, but a moral and spiritual one. He said, "We should choose food not for pleasure but for nourishment, not to please our palate but to strengthen our body." This might seem like a small thing, but it's a profound metaphor for a larger life philosophy. He's pointing out that when we turn a basic need like eating into a complex pursuit of sensory pleasure, we waste immense mental energy on something that should be simple and sustaining. We become distracted by the endless quest for the perfect meal, the newest restaurant, the most exotic ingredient, and we miss the point entirely. Food is fuel for the much more important work of living a good life. By simplifying this one area, we reclaim a surprising amount of cognitive bandwidth and willpower that can be redirected toward our true priorities. This ancient insight is powerfully validated by modern minimalists who actively choose to live with less. They consistently report a significant boost in both productivity and mental clarity that seems almost magical to those still drowning in clutter. But it's not magic, it's simple physics. Your attention is a finite resource. Every object you own, every subscription you maintain, every non-essential commitment on your calendar demands a tiny piece of your attention. It requires you to decide to keep it, clean it, maintain it, update it, or worry about it. This is the hidden cognitive load of stuff. When you reduce the number of things vying for your attention, you aren't just cleaning your house, you are freeing up your most valuable asset, your focus. With that reclaimed focus, you can dive deeper into your work, be more present with your loved ones, and engage more fully with your own thoughts. The simplicity on the outside creates a powerful clarity on the inside. So the question isn't whether you should sell all your belongings and move into a tiny house. The real, practical question is this: what is one single complexity you could consciously eliminate from your daily life this week? It doesn't have to be a huge gesture. Maybe it's unsubscribing from a dozen promotional email lists that clog your inbox and tempt you to spend. Perhaps it's clearing off the physical clutter from your desk, creating a clean surface that invites focused work instead of distracted anxiety. It could be canceling a streaming service you barely use, or committing to a simple, rotating menu of meals for lunch to eliminate the daily "what should I eat" debate. Choose one, identify that one leak in your attention tank and plug it. Notice the immediate sense of relief that comes from reducing just one source of noise. That small act of simplification is a direct step toward the Stoic ideal of freedom. The freedom to direct your life rather than being directed by the endless complications you've accumulated. Picture a stand of bamboo in a fierce storm. While rigid, mighty trees might snap under the pressure, the bamboo bends, swaying with the wind, and when the storm passes, it springs back, unharmed and resilient. This isn't a sign of weakness, it's a masterclass in adaptability, a perfect metaphor for the Stoic practice of non-attachment. The goal isn't to become cold, indifferent, or disconnected from the world. It's about learning the art of engaging fully with life-loving people, pursuing goals, enjoying possessions without wrapping your entire sense of self and security around them. It is the profound difference between holding something in an open hand, where it is free to come and go, and clenching it in a tight fist, where the fear of dropping it creates constant tension and the eventual loss feels like losing a part of yourself. This philosophy is deeply rooted in the Stoic acceptance of a fundamental truth: change is the only constant. Everything in life is in a state of flux. Relationships evolve, careers transform, health fluctuates, and circumstances shift. To cling to any of these as if they are permanent fixtures is to set yourself up for a world of suffering when reality inevitably asserts itself. Marcus Aurelius offered gentle yet firm guidance on this, reminding himself to accept everything which happens, even if it is disagreeable, because it leads to this, the health of the universe. He is not saying we should be passive, but that we should align our expectations with the nature of reality itself. To fight against change is like trying to stop the tide from coming in. You will only exhaust yourself and drown in the effort. Resilience is found not in resistance but in graceful adaptation. We can see the incredible power of this principle in two of the most important areas of our lives: relationships and careers. In a personal relationship, attachment often manifests as jealousy, neediness, and a desperate desire to control the other person's actions and feelings to guarantee they never leave. This clinging energy can suffocate a partnership, creating the very dynamics that might drive someone away. Non-attachment, practiced wisely, looks entirely different. It means loving your partner deeply and committing to them fully, but doing so from a place of wholeness within yourself. Your happiness is not their responsibility. You cherish the time you have together without demanding a guarantee of forever. This creates a space of freedom and trust within the relationship that actually makes it stronger, more authentic, and more likely to endure. You are together because you choose to be, not because you need to be. In our professional lives, attachment usually shows up as an unhealthy fixation on a specific job title, a certain salary, or a particular career path. We become so identified with being the vice president or the founder that any threat to that position feels like a threat to our very existence. This attachment breeds a terrible fear of failure, making us risk-averse and resistant to necessary changes within our industry. A non-attached approach to work allows you to pour your passion and skills into your role while holding the outcome lightly. You understand that your job is a thing you do, not who you are. This mental shift grants you tremendous adaptability. If the company restructures and your position is eliminated, you are certainly disappointed, but you are not decimated. You can pivot, retrain, or explore a new direction because your core identity wasn't wrapped up in that one role. You become like the bamboo, able to bend with the economic winds without breaking. Now take a moment to turn this lens inward. Where in your own life is attachment currently creating a source of quiet stress or outright anxiety? Is it your attachment to your children and the constant worry that something might happen to them, which ironically prevents you from fully enjoying the precious moments you have with them now? Is it your attachment to a specific vision of how your future should unfold, a 5-year plan that you're terrified might not materialize? Perhaps it's your attachment to your home, a possession you love but whose maintenance and protection has become a constant source of financial worry. Identify that one area. Simply acknowledging the tightness of your grip is the first step toward learning how to open your hand, to hold it all more lightly, and in doing so, discover a newfound resilience that allows you to navigate life's inevitable changes not with fear but with grace. Have you ever sent an angry email you immediately regretted, or made a snap purchase to soothe a bad mood, only to wonder what you were thinking later? These are the moments when emotion takes the driver's seat and reason is left scrambling in the back. It's in these flashes of impulse that we often create the very neediness and dependency we're trying to avoid. Stoicism doesn't ask us to eliminate emotion. We're human, not robots. Instead, it offers a powerful tool for ensuring our feelings don't become the sole architect of our actions. That tool is the disciplined application of rational judgment, a practice that allows us to insert a crucial pause between a triggering event and our response, giving us the space to choose a path aligned with our values rather than our temporary impulses. This entire practice is built on the foundation we discussed earlier, the Stoic dichotomy of control. Reason is the faculty that allows us to properly sort our experiences into these two categories. When a strong desire or a powerful aversion arises, a craving for a certain outcome or a fear of a particular event, reason steps in to ask the essential question: is this within my control? If the answer is no, reason guides us to release our white-knuckled grip on the outcome, saving us from a world of frustration. If the answer is yes, if it pertains to our own judgments, choices, or actions, then reason provides the clarity needed to act with virtue and intention. It is the calm, steadying hand on the tiller that keeps our ship from being tossed in every emotional storm. The great teacher Epictetus, whose words cut straight to the heart of the matter, gave us perhaps the most famous Stoic quote of all time: "We are disturbed not by events, but by the views which we take of them." This is the absolute core of the issue. An event itself is neutral. It is the story we tell ourselves about that event, the judgment we attach to it, that generates our emotional turmoil. Someone cutting you off in traffic is a simple fact. The story you tell yourself, "That jerk disrespected me, how dare they," is what creates the rage. Reason's job is to interrogate that story. Is it true? Is it helpful? Is this person's action a reflection of my worth? or is it far more likely a reflection of their own rushing, distracted state? By applying reason to our judgments, we drain the emotional charge from the event and reclaim our power. Consider two different ways of receiving the same piece of constructive criticism at work. An emotionally driven response is immediate and visceral. The heart races, the face flushes. The judgment attached is, "This is an attack. My manager thinks I'm incompetent. I'm going to be fired." This internal story triggers a defensive reaction, perhaps a sharp, justification-filled reply, or a retreat into sullen silence. The need for validation and security feels threatened, and the response is designed to protect that need, often making the situation worse. Now, contrast that with a reasoned response. The same initial sting of emotion might be felt, that's natural. But then, the pause, reason steps in and applies the dichotomy. This feedback is outside my complete control. My manager's opinion is her own. What is within my control is how I listen and what I choose to do with this information. It interrogates the judgment. Is this an attack or is it data? Could there be a useful nugget here that helps me improve? The resulting response is calm, open, and professional. Thank you for that feedback. I appreciate you pointing that out. Could you help me understand a bit more so I can work on it? This approach doesn't just solve the problem more effectively. It projects a confidence and self-sufficiency that is the very opposite of neediness. The goal is to make this application of reason a default setting, a habit of mind. It starts with building the muscle of awareness. The next time you feel a strong emotion surge, whether it's anger, jealousy, anxiety, or a desperate want, I want you to try a simple 3-step practice. First, just notice the physical sensation. Feel the heat in your face, the knot in your stomach, the tension in your shoulders. Acknowledge the emotion without judgment. I am feeling anger right now. Second, insert the pause. Take one deep breath. This single act creates a sliver of space between the stimulus and your response. Third, in that space, ask reason to do its job. Pose Epictetus's question. What judgment am I making about this event that is causing this disturbance? Is this thing that I want or fear truly within my control? You don't need to have a perfect philosophical answer. Just the act of asking the question shifts you from the emotional brain to the reasoning brain. It is in that shift that you will find the freedom to choose your next move, rather than having it chosen for you by a passing feeling. Seneca, with his piercing clarity, once wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." Let that sink in for a moment. This single sentence turns our entire modern understanding of wealth on its head. We live in a world that constantly measures riches by the size of a bank account, the square footage of a home, or the brand of a car. But Stoicism invites us to perform a quiet audit of the soul, to measure our true net worth not by what we have accumulated in our portfolios, but by the level of contentment we have cultivated within our own hearts. This is the highest form of wealth, a fortune that is immune to market crashes, inflation, or theft. It is the profound satisfaction of knowing that what you already possess is, in this very moment, enough. This philosophy redefines wealth from a frantic state of acquisition to a peaceful state of being. It's the difference between seeing your life as a cup that is perpetually half empty, always needing to be filled from external sources, and recognizing it as a cup that is already full. The Stoic goal is to shift the source of your satisfaction from the outside in. When your sense of sufficiency is generated internally, you break the exhausting cycle of believing that the next purchase, the next promotion, or the next milestone will finally be the thing that makes you happy. You begin to understand that each time you reach that next rung on the ladder, the horizon of desire simply moves further away, leaving you exactly as far from contentment as you were before. True wealth, then, is the liberation from that endless chase. Seneca explored this idea from many angles in his letters. In one particularly powerful passage, he observes, "He is richest who is content with the least, for content is the wealth of nature." Here he connects contentment to our most fundamental state of being. It is natural to have enough. The constant craving for more is an unnatural, socially engineered restlessness. In another letter, he writes, "Until we have begun to go without them, we fail to realize how unnecessary many things are. We have been using them not because we needed them, but because we had them." This is a stunning insight into the human psyche. We often desire things not for their inherent value, but simply because they are there, dangled in front of us. The practice of contentment is the practice of distinguishing between a genuine need and a manufactured want, and finding deep satisfaction in the former. To see this in action, let's compare two archetypes. The first person is always wanting more. They get a raise, and for a week there's a thrill, but soon their gaze shifts to the next higher salary band. They buy a new car, and the novelty is exhilarating for a month, but then they start noticing a slightly nicer model on the road, and a subtle sense of lack begins to creep back in. Their life becomes a series of temporary highs followed by longer stretches of quiet yearning. They are like a sailor drinking salt water. The more they consume, the thirstier they become. Now observe the second person who practices gratitude for enough. They may have a modest income, but they have a keen awareness of their good fortune. They find genuine joy in the simple fact that their needs are met: a warm home, nourishing food, the company of good friends. Their happiness isn't conditional on the next external achievement. They are the sailor who has found a fresh, steady spring. Their cup isn't necessarily larger, but they are deeply aware that it is already full, and they savor every drop. This shift in perspective is perhaps the most practical and accessible Stoic practice available to us. It requires no special tools or life circumstances. It begins with a simple, deliberate act of attention. So, right now, I want you to pause and bring this principle to life. Don't just listen to this idea, actively participate in it. Think of 3 things right in this moment that you are genuinely content with. They don't have to be grand. In fact, it's often the smallest, most ordinary things that hold the deepest resonance. Perhaps it's the warmth of the sun coming through a window, the reliable comfort of your favorite chair, the fact that you had a nutritious meal today, or the quiet presence of a pet sleeping nearby. It could be the simple gift of having a mind capable of learning and understanding these very concepts. Identify 3, say them to yourself, and as you do, notice the subtle but powerful shift that occurs, a feeling of abundance that has nothing to do with what you own and everything to do with how you see. The Stoics understood that our inner peace is not just shaped by our actions, but profoundly influenced by what we allow into our minds and lives on a daily basis. They practiced a form of mindful consumption long before it became a modern buzzword, paying careful attention not only to the food they ate, but to the media they engaged with and the information they absorbed. Marcus Aurelius offered a powerful directive on this very subject, writing in his Meditations, "Your mind will take the shape of what you frequently hold in thought, for the human spirit is colored by such impressions." This isn't just a poetic observation, it's a stark warning about the architecture of our own consciousness. Every piece of content we consume, every news alert, every social media scroll, every advertisement, every conversation, is an impression that stains the fabric of our thinking, subtly shaping our desires, our fears, and our entire perception of what we need to be happy. This concept moves far beyond simple nutrition. While the Stoic Musonius Rufus did advocate for simple food to avoid the moral weakness of gluttony, the principle extends to a much broader diet, the diet of our attention. In our hyper-connected world, we are constantly feasting at a buffet of digital information, most of it engineered to hijack our focus and trigger our basest emotions. Each notification is a tiny impression. Each curated highlight reel from a friend's life is an impression. Each alarming headline is an impression. Cumulatively, this endless stream colors our spirit with envy, anxiety, distraction, and a pervasive sense of lack. We unconsciously begin to measure our own lives against the distorted realities we see online, and our desires are slowly reprogrammed to align with what the algorithm wants us to want, not what we truly value. Guarding your impressions, therefore, is the most fundamental act of self-defense in the modern age. It is how you protect your most valuable asset, the clarity and peace of your own mind. Consider the tangible impact of something as ubiquitous as social media. The endless scrolling through perfected images of vacations, careers, and relationships creates a constant, low-grade hum of comparison. Without even realizing it, we are consuming a narrative that says everyone else is winning, that we are falling behind, that we need to acquire more, do more, and be more to finally measure up. This consumption directly fuels the fire of desire and erodes our contentment. But when someone makes the conscious choice to reduce that intake, to delete apps from their phone or set strict time limits, the results are often immediate and profound. The mental static begins to fade, the compulsive need to compare diminishes. With that quieter mental landscape comes a remarkable surge in focus and presence. Time once lost to mindless scrolling is suddenly available for deeper work, richer conversations, or simply being with one's own thoughts. The reduction of envious impressions creates space for more virtuous ones, allowing you to reconnect with your own priorities rather than being swept along by the currents of everyone else's. This practice of mindful consumption is about becoming the gatekeeper of your own senses. It's about moving from a passive state of consumption, where anything can walk in and make itself at home in your mind, to an active state of curation. You begin to ask a simple but powerful question before engaging with any form of media or entertainment. Is this serving me? Is this impression coloring my spirit with tranquility and virtue, or with anxiety and want? This isn't about living in an information bubble. It's about choosing depth over distraction and nourishment over noise. It means opting for a book that challenges and grows you over a binge-worthy show that simply numbs you. It means choosing to listen to a podcast that inspires thoughtful reflection over one that feeds outrage. It means being intentional about the conversations you engage in, steering them toward substance rather than gossip. Each choice is a vote for the kind of mind you want to inhabit. To truly understand the power of this principle in your own life, I invite you to conduct a simple one-day audit. For a full 24 hours, become a scientist of your own consumption. Carry a small notebook or use your phone to jot down everything you take in. Not just food, but every major piece of media, every news article you click on, every social media platform you open, every television show you watch, and even the general nature of your conversations. At the end of the day, review your list. Ask yourself for each item, what was the intention behind consuming this? How did it make me feel during and afterwards? Did it leave me feeling more focused and content, or more distracted and needy? You don't need to make any drastic changes immediately. The goal is simply to bring a level of conscious awareness to the countless impressions you voluntarily let shape your mind every single day. That awareness itself is the first and most critical step toward building a more resilient and peaceful inner citadel, one thoughtful choice at a time. How would your day-to-day choices shift if the soundtrack of praise and criticism from other people suddenly fell silent? If you knew with absolute certainty that no one would ever applaud your success or condemn your failure, what path would you actually choose to walk? This thought experiment cuts straight to the heart of a profound Stoic ideal, the goal of acting for the sake of virtue itself, rather than for the external rewards of approval or the fear of disapproval. When your sense of purpose is internally generated, rooted in your own unwavering commitment to doing what is right and excellent, you unlock a level of self-confidence that is completely impervious to the shifting winds of popular opinion. You are no longer performing for an audience. You are living in alignment with your own deepest values, and that is its own reward. This state of emotional equilibrium is what the Stoics called ataraxia, a tranquil steadiness of soul that cannot be easily disturbed. It's not about becoming arrogant or dismissive of feedback. It's about developing a core sense of self that is so solid that external judgments, whether positive or negative, simply don't have the power to define you. You can receive a compliment with graciousness without letting it inflate your ego, because your self-worth wasn't contingent on it. You can listen to constructive criticism with an open mind without letting it crush your spirit, because your fundamental value isn't up for debate. Your internal compass, calibrated to true north by your own virtues, is the only guide you need. Epictetus, who understood the fickle nature of public opinion better than most, provided the ultimate mental framework for this detachment. He instructed his students, "If anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said of you, but answer, 'He was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone.'" This is more than just a witty retort. It's a profound reframing of the entire concept of criticism. It completely disarms the insult by revealing its inherent subjectivity and limitation. It reminds you that any single opinion is just one tiny, incomplete data point, and that you are the ultimate authority on your own character and efforts. His broader teaching was to never be elated by praise or dejected by blame, because both are external events that lie outside the sphere of your control. They are merely impressions, and you hold the power to choose whether or not to accept them as truth. We can see this principle embodied in the world of art. Imagine a visionary painter who is deeply connected to a unique personal style. For a time, her work is celebrated by critics, galleries clamor for her pieces, and her name is on everyone's lips. She is praised for her boldness and innovation. Then the trends change, a new movement emerges, and her work falls out of favor. The same critics who once lauded her now dismiss her as passé. If her creative drive was fueled by that external praise, this shift would be devastating. She might abandon her authentic voice to chase the new trend, creating derivative work in a desperate attempt to win back approval. Her art would become a reaction to the market rather than an expression of her soul. Now, contrast that with an artist who creates for virtue's sake, for the intrinsic reward of expressing a truth, mastering a craft, and fulfilling her own standard of excellence. The praise feels nice, but it doesn't alter her course. The criticism is considered, but it doesn't derail her. She continues to create from that deep, internal wellspring because the act of creation itself is the point. Her confidence doesn't come from 5-star reviews. It comes from the quiet knowledge that she is being true to her art. This has a powerful and immediate application in your own life. Think back to the last significant piece of praise or criticism you received. It could have been a performance review at work, a comment on a social media post, or feedback from a friend on a decision you made. Now replay that moment in your mind and observe your internal reaction. Did the praise send a little jolt of validation through you, making you stand a little taller and work a little harder to earn the next hit? did the criticism land like a physical blow, sending you into a spiral of self-doubt and justification? That emotional charge is a clear signal that you were, at least in part, invested in the external verdict. Now, try on a different perspective. What if you could mentally thank the person for their opinion and then simply return to your own internal scorecard? What if your primary question wasn't, did they like it? But did I act with integrity? Did I do my best according to my own principles? That subtle shift in focus from external approval to internal virtue is the very essence of Stoic detachment. It is the practice that builds an unshakable confidence, one that is earned not from the world's applause, but from your own self-respect. The Roman philosopher Seneca opened his powerful essay on the shortness of life with a startling accusation, writing that most of us are not poor or sick, but simply wasteful. We are guilty of the most profound form of wastefulness imaginable. We squander our time. He observed a painful paradox in human behavior. People are frugal in guarding their personal property, but as soon as it comes to squandering time, they are most wasteful of the one thing in which it is right to be stingy. This insight cuts straight to the heart of our modern dilemma. We will carefully budget our money, compare prices for hours to save a few dollars, and meticulously manage our investment portfolios. Yet, we will thoughtlessly hand over entire hours, days, and years of our finite lives to activities that drain our energy, diminish our joy, and bring us no closer to a meaningful existence. We protect our material possessions with vigilance, but leave the gate to our time wide open for any distraction to wander in and take up residence. This misplacement of priority is the engine behind so much of our unnecessary wanting. The relentless pursuit of possessions is, at its core, often a misdirected attempt to acquire more life. We buy things hoping they will deliver the happiness, status, or security we crave. But each new object requires more of our time to earn the money to buy it, time to maintain it, time to worry about it, and time to eventually replace it. We get trapped on a hamster wheel, running faster and faster to acquire more things, only to find that the things we own end up owning our hours and draining our attention. The Stoic shift occurs when we realize that time is the ultimate non-renewable resource. Unlike money, which can be lost and regained, or possessions which can be replaced, a moment that passes is gone forever. When we truly internalize this, our relationship with material wants begins to transform. We start to see every desire not just in terms of its financial cost, but in terms of its time cost. We begin to ask a more penetrating question. How many hours of my life will I have to trade for this object, and is that a fair exchange? This fundamental shift in values creates a clear divergence in how people choose to live. Imagine two individuals. The first is a relentless accumulator, constantly chasing the next promotion to afford a bigger house, a newer car, and more luxurious vacations. Their calendar is a mosaic of work commitments, shopping trips, and maintenance tasks for all their belongings. Their sense of accomplishment is tied to their net worth, but their time is perpetually mortgaged to the bank of future acquisition. They are living for a tomorrow that is promised to no one. Now, consider the second person who has made the conscious choice to value time over things. They may have a more modest income, but they fiercely protect their hours. They choose a smaller home that requires less upkeep and financial pressure, freeing up time for reading, learning, deep conversations, and being present with loved ones. They invest in experiences, a hike in nature, a skill-building course, a volunteer opportunity that compound in memory and personal growth rather than depreciating in a garage. They understand that a life rich in time is the truest form of wealth. Seneca's words force us into an uncomfortable but necessary self-audit. He points out that we act as if we will live forever, postponing our true living for a distant future that may never arrive. We say we will travel when we retire, pursue a passion when we have more money, connect with family when we are less busy. But life, as he reminds us, is long if you know how to use it. The person who has lived decades in a distracted haze of acquisition has actually lived very little. The person who has lived a few decades with deliberate, mindful attention to how each hour is spent has lived a full and rich life, regardless of their material holdings. The quality of our life is not measured by the inventory of our possessions, but by the depth and intention of our moments. So the most practical and profound question you can ask yourself today is this: how can you begin to reallocate your most precious resource, your time, away from the endless project of acquiring and toward the sacred art of actually living? This doesn't require a radical overnight change. It starts with a single conscious choice. Look at your upcoming week. Identify one block of time currently dedicated to acquiring or maintaining possessions. Perhaps an hour spent browsing online stores, a weekend afternoon devoted to cleaning and organizing clutter, or even the mental energy spent worrying about a purchase. Now consciously reclaim that time. Dedicate it instead to an activity that expands your life rather than your inventory. Use that hour to call an old friend, take a walk without your phone, read a book that challenges you, or simply sit in quiet reflection. In that small act of reclamation, you are not just changing your schedule, you are making a powerful declaration about what you truly value and taking a definitive step toward a life of stoic richness. Gratitude is the antidote to endless wanting. In a world that constantly whispers about what we lack, this simple practice acts as a powerful corrective lens, shifting our focus from the empty spaces to the overwhelming abundance that already exists in our lives. The Stoics understood this psychological shift intimately. They didn't see gratitude as a passive feeling of thankfulness that occasionally washed over them. They treated it as an active, disciplined practice, a form of mental training essential for maintaining tranquility and combating the insatiable hunger for more. Their daily routines often included dedicated moments of reflection, not just on their actions but on their fortunes. They would consciously inventory their blessings, from the most profound, like their health and reason, to the seemingly mundane, like a warm meal or a comfortable place to sleep. This wasn't a naive denial of life's difficulties, but a strategic recalibration of attention. By regularly directing their awareness to what was present and good, they fortified their minds against the corrosive effects of envy, dissatisfaction, and lack. Marcus Aurelius, even as emperor, constantly practiced this mental discipline. In his private writings, he urged himself to actively notice and appreciate the good, however small. He wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." This wasn't just poetic musing, it was a command to his own mind. He was instructing himself to begin each day by anchoring his consciousness in the fundamental gifts of existence that are so easily overlooked. He knew that the human mind has a natural negativity bias, a tendency to spot the single thorn on a rosebush laden with blooms. Gratitude is the conscious effort to rewire that bias, to train the eye to see the flowers first. It is the practice of finding enough, right here and right now, instead of postponing contentment to a future date when some external condition is finally met. Modern science has now caught up to this ancient wisdom, providing robust evidence for what the Stoics knew intuitively. The practice of keeping a gratitude journal, where one regularly writes down a few specific things they are thankful for, has been shown in numerous studies to significantly increase overall life satisfaction and well-being. Why does something so simple work so well? The act of writing forces a concrete specificity. It's not just, "I'm grateful for my family," but I'm grateful for the way my daughter laughed uncontrollably at breakfast this morning. This specificity makes the feeling more real and impactful. Neurologically, it strengthens positive neural pathways, effectively teaching your brain to scan for and prioritize the good. Over time, this doesn't just create fleeting moments of happiness. It cultivates a more resilient and optimistic baseline outlook. The person practicing gratitude is not immune to hardship, but they are far less likely to be completely derailed by it, because their sense of stability is built on a foundation of recognized blessings rather than a shaky tower of unmet desires. This transformative power is available to anyone starting this very moment. You don't need a special notebook or a perfect quiet hour. The practice can begin with a mere minute of your time and a sliver of your attention. So here is a direct invitation. Before this day ends, I want you to pause and physically write down 3 distinct things you are genuinely grateful for today. They don't have to be monumental. In fact, their power often lies in their simplicity. Perhaps it's the warmth of the sun on your skin during a walk, the satisfying taste of a well-brewed cup of coffee, the reliable comfort of your bed, or a moment of unexpected kindness from a stranger. The key is to be specific and to feel the genuine appreciation as you write it. This small, deliberate act is a direct application of Stoic philosophy. It is you, for a moment, stepping off the treadmill of wanting and planting your feet firmly on the solid ground of what is already yours. It is a quiet but profound declaration that, in this moment, you have enough. There is a world of difference between feeling deprived and consciously choosing simplicity. One is a state of lack imposed by circumstances, often breeding resentment and a sense of victimhood. The other is an active, empowering declaration of independence, a deliberate exercise of your will to prove that your happiness is not held hostage by your possessions. This is the profound strength embedded in the Stoic art of choosing less. It isn't about what you're giving up, it's about what you're gaining: self-mastery, discipline, and the unshakable confidence that comes from knowing your peace was never in those things to begin with. This voluntary minimalism is the ultimate alignment with Stoic virtue, transforming daily life into a gymnasium for the soul where you build the muscle of your character with every intentional no you utter. The Stoic teacher Musonius Rufus, who focused intensely on the practical application of philosophy, saw this connection with crystal clarity. He taught that hardship, when voluntarily undertaken, is not a punishment but a training ground. He argued, how can a person become great-souled and high-minded if they have not been tested by hardship? For ease and luxury cause a weakening of the mind and the body. His insight reveals that constantly choosing the path of least resistance, the most comfortable option, the easiest consumption, actually makes us weaker. It atrophies our resilience, but when we actively choose a harder path, a simpler meal, a plainer room, a quieter entertainment, we are not punishing ourselves. We are engaging in a form of strength training for our spirit. Each choice is a rep that fortifies our will against the day when life, inevitably, throws a hardship our way that we did not choose. We become like a soldier who trains in all weather so that the storm of battle will not break them. This ancient principle finds powerful expression in the lives of countless modern figures who embody this paradox of power through simplicity. Consider the renowned investor Warren Buffett, who still lives in the same relatively modest house he bought decades ago, despite being one of the wealthiest people on the planet. His choice isn't about frugality for its own sake. It's a statement that his mental energy and focus are too valuable to be wasted on the maintenance and worry that comes with excessive luxury. Or look at the late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, known for her simple, consistent judicial robes and her focused, uncluttered approach to her work and her arguments. Her power came from the clarity of her mind, not the opulence of her surroundings. These individuals understand that every dollar not spent on a bigger mansion, every hour not devoted to managing complex luxuries, is a resource freed up and redirected toward their true purpose. Their modest lifestyles are not a sign of asceticism, but a strategic simplification that allows their greatest strengths to shine unimpeded. This practice of intentional downsizing is where philosophy meets the pavement of your daily life. It's one thing to admire the concept from a distance and another to feel its transformative power firsthand. The goal isn't to sell everything you own, but to start a quiet revolution of choice in one single area. This week, I invite you to select one domain of your life and consciously decide to downsize it. This could mean anything. It might be downsizing your digital diet by deleting one social media app from your phone and reclaiming those scattered moments of attention. It could be downsizing your wardrobe, choosing to wear a simple, recurring uniform of a few favorite items to eliminate the daily decision fatigue of what to wear. Perhaps it's downsizing your entertainment, opting for an evening of reading or conversation instead of defaulting to streaming another show, or even downsizing your speech, committing to listening more and speaking less in your conversations. The specific area matters less than the conscious intent behind the choice. In that act of deliberate reduction, you will not feel a sense of loss. You will feel a surge of agency. You are not being deprived by the world. You are exercising your power over it, choosing strength over comfort, and in doing so, building the unshakable character of someone who truly needs very little to not just survive but to thrive. That gnawing sense that everyone else is having a more exciting, more productive, or more meaningful experience while you're stuck where you are, this feeling we now call FOMO, is not some modern invention of social media. The ancient Stoics were intimately familiar with this anxiety, though they might have framed it as a fear of losing status, connection, or opportunity within their own social circles. The driving force is identical, a deep-seated worry that by not participating, we are somehow falling behind, becoming less relevant, or failing to seize a chance that will never come again. This anxiety pushes us into a state of perpetual motion, filling our calendars and our minds with a frantic busyness that Seneca identified as a profound form of distraction. He saw this relentless activity not as a marker of importance, but as a clever escape from the one thing so many people fear the most, being alone with their own thoughts. He wrote, "People are frugal in guarding their personal property, but as soon as it comes to squandering time, they are most wasteful of the one thing in which it is right to be stingy." In this context, busyness becomes a shield against self-reflection, and FOMO is the engine that keeps that shield firmly in place. The Stoic counter to this is not to become a recluse, but to develop a more discerning eye for what truly constitutes a valuable use of your time and energy. It involves a radical reframing of what it means to miss out. From a Stoic perspective, when you decline an invitation to a crowded, noisy party that you know will leave you drained, you aren't missing out on fun. You are consciously choosing to gain an evening of tranquility, perhaps for reading, for a thoughtful conversation with a close friend, or simply for the restorative power of silence. You are trading a potential external stimulation for a guaranteed internal reward. The anxiety of FOMO stems from the illusion that value exists only in the external event itself. Stoicism teaches that the real value is determined by the judgment you apply to it and the effect it has on your character and peace of mind. By willingly embracing the act of missing out, you are not settling for less. You are actively selecting a higher form of contentment that is under your direct control. Imagine a typical Friday evening. Your phone buzzes with a last-minute invitation to a large gathering. The old script, driven by FOMO, immediately plays in your head. I should go. What if it's amazing? What if I regret staying home? What if everyone bonds without me? The pressure builds. Now, apply the Stoic pause. You bring reason to the decision. You ask yourself not, what might I miss, but what will I gain by staying home, and what will this event truly cost me in terms of energy and focus? You realize that a quiet evening would allow you to finally start that book, get a full night's rest, or prepare mindfully for the next day. You confidently reply, "Thank you so much for the invite. I can't make it this time, but I hope you have a wonderful evening." The moment you hit send, a wave of relief washes over you. The anxiety vanishes, replaced by a serene sense of ownership over your time. You have not lost an opportunity, you have seized control of your own peace. This practice of intentional refusal is a muscle that grows stronger with each repetition. Every time you choose your inner calm over external commotion, you reinforce the truth that your worth is not measured by your social currency or your visibility. You prove to yourself that you can withstand the temporary discomfort of saying no and discover that on the other side of that discomfort lies a far more valuable prize, self-possession. The world will always present an endless parade of potential distractions and engagements. The Stoic doesn't try to attend them all. They become the curator of their own life, selectively choosing only those activities that align with their values and contribute to their long-term tranquility, while confidently letting the rest pass by without a second thought. This is how missing out transforms from a source of fear into a strategy for building a more focused, intentional, and peaceful life. Imagine your mind as a ship in the middle of a turbulent sea. Storms of external events, criticism, loss, sudden changes will always rage around you. If your ship is anchored to the shifting seabed of other people's opinions, material possessions, or perfect circumstances, you will be tossed violently, completely at the mercy of the waves. But if you learn to drop your anchor deep within yourself, into the solid bedrock of your own character and resources, you will hold steady. The storm may still be fierce, but you will no longer be adrift. This is the profound joy of self-reliance that Stoicism offers, the realization that your happiness, your stability, and your worth are not external treasures to be hunted, but internal capacities to be cultivated. This isn't about a lonely, arrogant independence where you refuse all help. It's about a foundational shift in where you source your fundamental sense of okayness. The Stoic path to self-reliance is built on three pillars: reason, virtue, and inner resources. Reason is your compass, allowing you to navigate situations clearly, separating what you can control from what you cannot. Virtue is your hull, the integrity of your character that keeps you afloat and moving in the right direction regardless of the weather. And your inner resources, your capacity for reflection, your sense of humor, your gratitude, your memories of past resilience are the provisions you have stored for the journey. When these are well developed, you find that you need very little from the outside world to feel calm, confident, and complete. Epictetus, who began his life as a slave and therefore understood powerlessness intimately, gave us the ultimate guide to this inner fortress. He taught, "We are not to give credit to the many who say that none ought to be educated but the free, but rather to the philosophers who say that the well-educated alone are free." He takes this even further, stating, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." This is the essence of self-reliance, finding your freedom and your joy not in the external privileges you are given, but in the internal qualities you have built for yourself. Your education, your character, your perspective, these are things that can never be taken from you. They are the possessions that matter. To see this in action, consider two people facing a long, quiet evening alone. The first person feels a deep sense of unease as soon as the silence descends. They immediately reach for their phone, turn on the television, or scroll through social media, seeking external input to fill the void. Their comfort depends on a constant stream of entertainment and distraction from the outside world. Without it, they are confronted with an inner stillness they find uncomfortable, even frightening. Now observe the second person. They also have access to all the same technology, but they feel no urgency to use it. They can sit with a cup of tea, simply watching the light change in the room, or enjoy getting lost in their own thoughts. They might pick up a book, write in a journal, or work on a personal project. Their enjoyment is generated from within. They are their own source of entertainment and peace. The first person is like an empty cup, always needing to be filled from an outside pitcher. The second person is like a spring, generating their own refreshing water from a source deep within. This ability to be content in your own company is one of the most practical and empowering forms of self-reliance you can develop. It is the ultimate proof that you are not dependent on external circumstances for your happiness. So this week, I encourage you to test and strengthen this muscle. Carve out just 30 minutes or even 15 if that feels like a challenge to be completely alone with yourself without any distractions. Leave your phone in another room. Don't turn on music or a podcast, just be. You might sit quietly, go for a walk without a destination, or simply stare out a window. At first, you might feel restless or bored. That's normal. Sit with that feeling. Observe it without judgment. Then, see what emerges on the other side of that restlessness. You might find a sudden clarity about a problem you've been wrestling with, a simple appreciation for the world around you, or just a deep sense of calm. In that quiet space, you are not avoiding the world. You are meeting the most reliable source of your own strength. What if every loss you've ever experienced was secretly a deposit into your inner bank of strength? We often view setbacks, the missed promotion, the ended relationship, the financial reversal as pure negatives, moments where life has taken something away from us. But the Stoics invite us to flip this script entirely. They propose that within every loss lies a hidden curriculum, a series of lessons that can teach us with brutal clarity what we genuinely require to be happy and resilient. It's in the stripping away of externals that we often get our first real glimpse of the powerful internals we've been neglecting all along. A loss forces a reckoning. It asks us, often for the first time, to distinguish between what is essential and what is merely decorative in our lives. Marcus Aurelius, who faced immense personal and political losses throughout his reign, framed this not as a passive acceptance of misfortune, but as an active alchemy of the spirit. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is one of the most potent ideas in Stoicism. He isn't saying to simply endure obstacles. He is instructing us to use them. The very thing that seems to block your path, the failure, the rejection, the loss, can be the raw material you use to build a new, better path forward. The obstacle isn't an endpoint, it's a redirect. It forces you to develop creativity, patience, courage, or perseverance qualities you might never have cultivated had your original, easier plan worked out. The loss of the external thing becomes the catalyst for the gain of an internal strength. Consider the story of a dedicated corporate lawyer who defined her entire identity and self-worth by her prestigious title and high salary. She worked 80-hour weeks, her sense of accomplishment tied directly to winning cases and earning bonuses. Then, following a major merger, her entire department was eliminated. The loss was sudden and devastating. In the first few months, she experienced what felt like a total collapse of her world. The external validation she had relied on for decades was gone. But in that quiet, empty space, something unexpected began to happen. Freed from the relentless grind, she started to reconnect with long-forgotten parts of herself. She realized her work had been draining her compassion and creativity. She began volunteering at a community legal clinic, and for the first time, she used her legal skills not to enrich a corporation, but to help people who had nowhere else to turn. She discovered a profound sense of purpose that her high-powered job had never provided. The loss of her career was the painful but necessary event that revealed her true vocation. She didn't just find a new job, she found a completely new reason for working. This transformative potential exists in all kinds of losses, not just professional ones. The end of a relationship can teach us the difference between loneliness and solitude, and reveal our own capacity for self-love. A period of ill health can sharpen our appreciation for the simple gift of a pain-free day, and teach us to listen to our bodies with more respect. Even the loss of a cherished dream can force us to reevaluate our desires and discover new aspirations that are more aligned with our authentic selves, rather than with societal expectations. In each case, the loss acts as a kind of fire. It burns away the non-essential, leaving behind only what is truly fireproof: our character, our values, and our ability to adapt and find meaning anew. Now turn this lens on your own life journey. I want you to think back to a significant loss you experienced. It doesn't have to be a monumental tragedy. It could be a smaller, but still impactful, disappointment or ending. As you recall that event, set aside the initial pain for a moment and ask yourself a different set of questions. What did that loss force you to learn about yourself? What strength did you have to summon that you didn't know you possessed? How did it clarify what was truly important to you, perhaps shifting your priorities in a way that ultimately served you better? The goal isn't to deny the difficulty of the experience, but to mine it for its hidden wisdom. By reframing that loss as a teacher, you reclaim its power. You transform it from a wound into a source of strength. And in doing so, you become the living proof of the Stoic truth that we can indeed find gain in what we have lost. The day is done, but the real work of growth has just begun. The ancient Stoics, from the lowliest student to the emperor himself, understood that the busyness of the day could easily pull us away from our deepest intentions. To counter this, they built a powerful ritual into the fabric of their lives: the evening review. This wasn't a time for self-flagellation or regret. It was a gentle, honest, and systematic process of holding up a mirror to their actions and thoughts, asking a simple but profound question: did I live today in alignment with my principles, or was I swept away by the currents of impulse and external pressure? This practice of daily reflection is the steering wheel that allows us to correct our course, ensuring that we are not just moving through life, but moving in a direction of our own conscious choosing. This quiet time of examination is the ultimate tool for fostering awareness. As we replay the scenes of our day in the safe, quiet theater of our own minds, we begin to see the hidden machinery of our desires and attachments at work. We can spot the exact moment when a casual want for a particular outcome, for a word of praise, for a possession solidified into a demanding need, and observe how that shift in perception dictated our emotional state and our actions. Reflection creates a crucial gap between the experience and our judgment of it. It allows us to see that we weren't angry because of the traffic jam itself, but because of our attachment to arriving on time. We weren't anxious about the meeting because of the meeting, but because of our desire to be perceived as competent and in control. This process of untangling the event from our judgment about the event is where true freedom is found. Seneca, in his letters to his friend Lucilius, was a passionate advocate for this practice. He described it as a non-negotiable part of his day, writing, "When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, aware of this habit that's now become her own, I examine my entire day and go back over what I've done and said. I hide nothing from myself, I pass nothing by." This passage reveals the heart of the practice. It is a confidential meeting with your most honest self, conducted without fear or favor. The goal is not to punish yourself for missteps, but to learn from them. It is a process of holding yourself accountable not to some abstract standard, but to the person you have committed to becoming. By refusing to pass anything by, you bring the light of your reason to every corner of your behavior, preventing small compromises from accumulating into a life you no longer recognize. To make this ancient practice immediately accessible, consider adopting a beautifully simple 3-question framework for your own nightly review. The first question is, what did I want today? Scan through your day and identify the key desires that drove you. Did you want to win that argument? Did you want to avoid a difficult conversation? Did you want to buy that new gadget? The second question, and perhaps the most important, is, why did I want it? This is where you drill down into the motivation. Was the desire rooted in a virtuous pursuit, a want for knowledge, for justice, for connection? Or was it fueled by a craving for external validation, a fear of missing out, or a simple hunger for comfort and pleasure? The third and final question is, was that want necessary? This brings the Stoic dichotomy of control into sharp focus. Did the object of your desire lie within your control, or were you pouring energy into wanting something that was ultimately in the hands of fortune? This trio of questions acts like a filter, sifting the gold of virtuous intention from the silt of distracted craving. The true power of this exercise is not in its complexity, but in its consistency. The goal isn't to achieve a perfect scorecard, but to simply build the muscle of self-awareness. Just as you wouldn't expect a single workout to transform your body, you can't expect one evening of reflection to rewire a lifetime of habits. But if you make this a nightly ritual, even for just 5 minutes before you sleep, you will begin to notice a remarkable shift. You will start to catch yourself in the middle of the day, recognizing a familiar, unhelpful desire as it arises. You will gain the precious seconds needed to choose a different response. You will slowly but surely become the conscious author of your days, rather than a character being written by your unconscious impulses. So tonight, before you close your eyes, give yourself the gift of this conversation. Ask yourself what you wanted, why you wanted it, and if it was truly necessary. In that quiet inquiry, you are not just reviewing your day, you are actively building a more intentional and resilient tomorrow. There's a well-known saying, often called the Serenity Prayer, that asks for the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. While its origins are spiritual, this idea is pure, practical Stoicism. It captures the essence of what the ancient philosophers taught about letting go of control, not as a form of surrender, but as the ultimate strategy for preserving our peace and directing our energy where it actually matters. The frustration and neediness we so often feel don't come from life's inherent difficulties. They spring from a fundamental misallocation of our effort. We exhaust ourselves trying to manage the unmanageable, and in the process we neglect the one domain where we have absolute authority, our own inner world. This brings us back to the core Stoic tool we've touched on, the dichotomy of control. Epictetus, whose teachings are the clearest guide to this practice, laid it out with stunning simplicity. He said, "Some things are within our power while others are not. Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, and, in a word, whatever is of our own doing." Not within our power are our body, our property, our reputation, our office, and in a word, whatever is not of our own doing. His instruction then was to focus exclusively on the first category, our own actions and judgments, and to meet everything in the second category with a calm acceptance. This isn't a suggestion, it's the foundational shift that makes a Stoic life possible. When you truly internalize this division, you stop wasting your precious life force on battles you cannot win. You stop trying to command the wind and instead learn to adjust your sails. We can see the stark difference between these two approaches in leadership styles. Imagine two managers in the same company. The first is a classic micromanager. She needs to approve every single email, hover over every decision, and constantly check in on her team's progress. She is deeply invested in controlling not just the outcome, but every minute step of the process. Her desire for a perfect result leads her to try and control the actions, moods, and creativity of her employees, things that are ultimately not hers to command. The result, she is perpetually frustrated and exhausted. Her team feels distrusted, stifled, and disengaged. They wait for instructions rather than taking initiative. Her need for control has created an environment of dependency and anxiety, and ironically, it often leads to worse outcomes because it kills innovation and ownership. Now consider the second manager. He operates from a Stoic understanding of control. He focuses his energy on what is within his power. He sets a clear vision, provides the necessary resources, offers guidance when asked, and cultivates a culture of trust and accountability. He empowers his team by defining the what and the why, but he leaves the how largely up to them. He understands that their individual choices, their creative solutions, and even their occasional mistakes are not within his direct control, and he doesn't waste energy trying to make them so. The result, he is far less stressed because he isn't personally responsible for micromanaging every variable. His team feels trusted, valued, and empowered. They bring more creativity and commitment to their work because they have a sense of ownership. This manager isn't passive, he is powerfully active within his proper sphere of influence. By letting go of what he cannot control, he actually gains more influence and achieves better results through a motivated team. This principle extends far beyond the office and into every corner of our lives. How much of our daily mental load is consumed by trying to control the uncontrollable? We agonize over what others think of us, trying to manage their opinions through our words and actions. We white-knuckle our way through traffic, as if our frustration could make the cars ahead move faster. We lay awake at night worrying about future events that are shrouded in uncertainty, attempting to solve problems that haven't even happened yet. Each of these is a form of self-inflicted suffering, a refusal to accept the basic nature of reality. The Stoic invitation is to perform a gentle but firm audit of your anxieties. To look at each one and ask Epictetus's question, is this within my power? So let's make this deeply personal. Right now, in this moment, what is one thing you are trying to control that you simply cannot? Is it the health and choices of a loved one, hoping they will live their life exactly as you think they should? Is it the outcome of a project at work, attaching your entire sense of self-worth to a result that depends on factors far beyond your effort? Perhaps it's something as simple as the weather ruining your weekend plans or the past and the mistakes you wish you could undo. Identify that one thing. Just naming it, acknowledging that it resides outside your command, is a revolutionary act. It is the first step in loosening its grip on your peace of mind. It is the moment you stop fighting the current and start swimming with purpose, using your strength where it will actually carry you forward. The Stoics drew a powerful line in the sand between two very different kinds of wants, a distinction that can completely reframe our relationship with desire itself. They spoke of natural desires and unnatural desires. A natural desire is something that arises from our basic human needs: nourishment for our bodies, shelter for our safety, connection for our well-being, and the pursuit of knowledge for our growth. These desires have a natural limit. You can only eat so much food before you are full, and you only need so much shelter to be protected from the elements. An unnatural desire, however, is a social creation, an artificial want that has no inherent limit. The craving for a specific luxury brand, the hunger for a higher social status than your neighbor, the obsession with accumulating wealth far beyond what you could ever need. These are fires that are designed to never be quenched. They are fueled by comparison and the illusion that the next acquisition will finally be the one that delivers lasting satisfaction. The wisdom of knowing what's enough is the practice of learning to feel the difference between these two types of desires in your own life, and having the courage to honor the natural limit of the first while consciously letting go of the endless chase of the second. When you can clearly identify that point of sufficiency for yourself, a remarkable sense of peace descends. The mental noise of constant wanting begins to quiet down. You are no longer perpetually scanning the horizon for the next thing to acquire or the next milestone to achieve in order to feel complete. This internal settlement is the foundation for truly rational and values-driven decision-making. Instead of asking, "How can I get more?" you start asking a far more powerful question. What is this for? Every potential commitment, purchase, or goal is held up against the light of your predefined enough. Does this new opportunity align with my core values and move me toward a life I actually want to live? Or is it merely a distraction, a shiny object on the path of someone else's definition of success? This clarity acts as a filter, saving you from the exhausting detours of endless striving and allowing you to channel your precious time and energy into the pursuits that genuinely matter to you. Seneca, with his characteristic bluntness, put his finger on the precise moment where happiness is lost, not in having little, but in always wanting more. He wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." Does it matter how much a man has laid up in his safe or in his warehouse, how large are his flocks and how fat his dividends, if he covets his neighbor's property and reckons not his own but his rival's possessions? You ask, what is the proper limit to wealth? It is, first, to have what is necessary, and second, to have what is enough. That final phrase holds the key to have what is enough. He isn't defining a specific number, he is pointing to a state of mind, a conscious decision to stop the internal craving. True wealth, in the Stoic sense, is the moment your desires no longer exceed your needs. This philosophy finds a powerful modern expression in the concept of financial independence. For many, this isn't about becoming a multimillionaire. It's about reaching a specific number where your investments generate enough passive income to cover your living expenses. The entire strategy hinges on a person first doing the deep, personal work of defining what their enough actually is. Someone who decides that their enough is a modest home, simple meals, time for hobbies, and the freedom to walk away from a job they dislike has a much lower financial target than someone whose enough requires a penthouse, luxury cars, and exotic vacations. The person who defines a lower number isn't settling. They are making a strategic choice to trade potential future luxuries for immediate present freedom. They might reach their goal in 10 years instead of 40, buying themselves decades of life without the need to labor for a paycheck. Their wealth isn't measured by the grandeur of their possessions, but by the abundance of their time and autonomy. They have used the Stoic principle of enough to design a life on their own terms. This concept extends far beyond your bank account. it applies to your career, your possessions, and your most ambitious goals. We live in a culture that glorifies more as an inherent good, more responsibility, more accolades, more square footage, more followers. But more always comes with a cost, often in the form of stress, less free time, and greater complexity. The constant striving for the next rung on the ladder can blind us to the fact that we might already be high enough to have a perfectly wonderful view. What if the pinnacle of success wasn't the corner office, but a role that challenged you just enough while leaving ample energy for your family and your passions? What if a goal wasn't meant to be endlessly pursued, but actually reached and enjoyed? This isn't about complacency, it's about conscious choice. It's the difference between being a rat running on a wheel that someone else is spinning and being the architect of your own habitat, deciding exactly how big it needs to be for you to live a flourishing life. So let's bring this wisdom down to earth. I want you to take a quiet moment today to personally define enough in one crucial area of your life. It could be a financial number, the annual income that would comfortably cover your needs and your deepest values. It could be a career goal, the title or level of impact that would feel truly satisfying, allowing you to contribute meaningfully without sacrificing your health or relationships. It might be about possessions, deciding how much stuff is actually sufficient for your happiness and committing to a policy of one in, one out once you reach that point. Whatever area you choose, write it down. Give this abstract concept a concrete form. This single act of definition is a profound declaration of independence from the tyranny of endless more. It is you drawing your own line in the sand and choosing to find your wealth, your success, and your peace on the right side of it. History is filled with moments where severe limitations became the unlikely catalyst for breathtaking innovation and timeless art. Consider the brilliant sonnets of Shakespeare, bound by a strict 14-line structure and a precise rhyming scheme. That rigid framework didn't stifle his genius, it compressed and focused it, forcing a density of meaning and beauty into a confined space that free verse might never have achieved. Or think of the Apollo 13 mission, a life-or-death scenario where astronauts and engineers on the ground, faced with a catastrophic failure and a rapidly diminishing supply of power and oxygen, used literally nothing but duct tape, plastic bags, and a cardboard manual cover to improvise a carbon dioxide filter and save the crew. They didn't have abundance, they had a terrifying constraint, and that constraint focused their creativity with laser-like intensity, leading to one of the most ingenious fixes in human history. These aren't exceptions, they are powerful demonstrations of a fundamental truth. Boundaries don't limit greatness, they can actually create the conditions for it to emerge. This idea is deeply woven into the fabric of Stoic philosophy. The Stoics didn't just advise us to endure obstacles, they taught us to actively use them as the raw material for our progress. An obstacle was never just a barrier, it was an opportunity to practice a virtue, to develop a skill, or to find a new path. A limitation was a form of training, forcing us to rely on our resourcefulness, our reason, and our inner strength instead of external advantages. They practiced a form of mental jiu-jitsu, where the energy of the impediment itself was redirected to propel them forward. A setback became set up for a comeback, not through wishful thinking, but through a conscious reframing of the challenge itself. Marcus Aurelius, who faced endless political turmoil, military threats, and personal loss during his reign, constantly reinforced this mindset in his private journal. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is perhaps one of the most empowering ideas in all of Stoicism. He is telling us that the obstacle isn't a distraction from our path, it is an essential part of the path. The very thing that seems to block our progress is the very thing we must use to make progress. A difficult person in your life becomes your training partner for practicing patience. A lack of funding forces you to develop a more elegant and efficient solution. A sudden change of plans becomes a lesson in adaptability. The constraint itself becomes the fuel for your ingenuity. We see this principle play out constantly in the creative and business worlds. Many of the most iconic and beloved albums in music history were born from severe technical or time constraints. Artists working with limited track tape machines had to make every single instrument and vocal count, layering sounds with intention and care, resulting in a richness that modern digital abundance can sometimes lack. In startups and entrepreneurship, a tiny budget is often a hidden blessing. It prevents wasteful spending on frivolous marketing campaigns or unnecessary features. It forces founders to talk directly to their earliest customers, to iterate based on real feedback, and to build a product that people truly need and will pay for. A team with a massive budget might build something complex and bloated. A team with a tight constraint is forced to build something simple, elegant, and truly valuable. The limitation breeds a clarity of purpose that abundance can easily drown out. This shifts our entire perspective on the challenges and limitations we face in our own lives. We often see a tight deadline, a limited budget, or a lack of certain resources as purely negative, as things holding us back from doing our best work. But what if we started to see them as a creative challenge? What if that very constraint is the secret ingredient that will force a breakthrough we wouldn't have found otherwise? So take a look at your current situation. Identify one single constraint you're facing right now. Maybe it's a lack of time for a personal project, a limited network in your industry, or a skill gap you've been meaning to address. Now, instead of lamenting it, ask yourself this powerful question: how can I use this specific limitation to my advantage? How can this very thing that seems to be holding me back actually become the tool that forces me to be more focused, more creative, or more resourceful? The answer to that question might just reveal your greatest untapped advantage. Think about the last time you were in a conversation with someone who seemed desperately eager for your approval. Perhaps they constantly name-dropped, exaggerated their accomplishments, or immediately agreed with everything you said. How did that make you feel? You likely felt a subtle pressure, a slight urge to pull away. Their neediness created an invisible weight in the interaction. Now recall a different person, someone who was calm, present, and genuinely listened without hanging on your every word for validation. They seemed comfortable in their own skin, with nothing to prove. That presence likely felt magnetic, drawing you in rather than pushing you away. This stark contrast lies at the heart of a powerful social dynamic. Neediness repels, while self-sufficient composure quietly commands respect and influence. This isn't about being aloof or arrogant. It's about the profound strength that comes from a deep-seated sense of internal adequacy. When you genuinely do not need constant validation, approval, or reassurance from others to feel okay, you stop emitting the subtle signals of desperation that people unconsciously detect. You stop begging for attention, as Epictetus would caution against. He advised his students to conduct themselves with dignity, reminding them that a virtuous person does not need to trumpet their own worth. This creates a fascinating paradox. The less you actively seek influence, the more influential you become. People are naturally drawn to those who are centered and self-contained because it signals reliability, integrity, and a strength that isn't contingent on external applause. Your calm presence becomes a sanctuary in a world of anxious striving, making you a more persuasive and trustworthy leader, partner, and friend. We can see this principle play out clearly in leadership. Imagine two managers vying for the same promotion. The first is intensely needy. In meetings, he constantly interrupts to reiterate his own points, desperate to be seen as the smartest person in the room. He takes any slight criticism as a personal attack and becomes defensive. He gossips about colleagues to make himself look better by comparison. His energy is frantic, and his team feels it. They become hesitant to offer ideas, fearing his fragile ego. He is like a person trying to sell a product by shouting its virtues. It often has the opposite effect, making people question its actual value. Now, consider the second manager. She speaks less, but when she does, her words carry weight because they are thoughtful and measured. She gives credit freely to her team and takes responsibility for setbacks without deflecting blame. She isn't invested in every interaction proving her worth, so she can truly listen and engage with other people's ideas. Her quiet confidence isn't loud, but it is unmistakable. It attracts talent, fosters loyalty, and builds a culture of psychological safety where people can do their best work. Who would you be more likely to follow? The answer is obvious. Her self-sufficiency makes her a natural leader because her authority comes from within, not from a title she's desperate to hold onto. This dynamic extends far beyond the office and into every one of our personal relationships. A partner who is needy and insecure, who requires constant texts and declarations of love to feel secure, inadvertently places a heavy burden on the other person. Their happiness becomes a responsibility for their partner to manage, which can feel suffocating over time. In contrast, a partner who is emotionally self-sufficient loves deeply but from a place of wholeness. They enjoy their partner's company but also have their own interests, friends, and internal sources of joy. This independence is not a lack of love. It is the foundation for a healthier, more mature love. It makes the relationship a choice, not a dependency, and that freedom is what allows true intimacy to flourish. The same holds true for friendships. The friend who is always comparing, competing, or seeking reassurance can be draining. The friend who is secure in themselves, who celebrates your successes without envy and supports you without needing anything in return, is a rare and cherished gift. So where does this show up in your own life? Take a moment to reflect on your most important relationships with your family, your friends, your colleagues, your partner. Can you identify one small way that a hint of neediness might be creeping in? Maybe it's the anxiety you feel when a text message goes unanswered for an hour. Perhaps it's the slight exaggeration of a story to make yourself seem more impressive at a social gathering. It could be the reluctance to voice a contrary opinion for fear of rocking the boat. These are all subtle forms of begging for external validation. Now, imagine how those interactions might shift if you approach them from a place of quiet confidence, from the unshakable knowing that you are enough, exactly as you are, without any added performance. How would that change the energy you bring? How would it change the way people respond to you? The journey toward needing less from others is perhaps the most powerful investment you can make, not just in your own peace, but in the quality of every connection you hold dear. How does a seemingly small ethical compromise, like telling a convenient white lie or taking a minor shortcut, actually end up creating more work, more anxiety, and more neediness in your life? It's a paradox we rarely stop to consider. That tiny corner we cut doesn't simplify things, it complicates them. It creates a tiny fracture in our character that we then have to spend mental energy monitoring, remembering, and covering up. Every time we act out of alignment with our deepest values, we create a new dependency, a need for others to believe a certain story about us, a need to hide the truth, a need to protect a fragile facade. Stoicism argues that true simplicity and freedom are found not in avoiding the hard right choice, but in embracing it, because a single virtuous action never requires a sequel of lies to support it. Living with integrity is the ultimate form of minimalism. It strips away the complex web of justifications and deceptions, leaving only the clean, simple truth of your actions. This is the heart of Stoic virtue in practice. It's about making your outward actions a perfect mirror of your inward principles, so there is no gap between who you are in private and who you are in public. When your actions are consistently aligned with your values, you eliminate the exhausting cognitive load of keeping up appearances. You no longer need to craft different narratives for different people or worry about your stories contradicting each other. Your life becomes integrated, whole, and remarkably simple because you have one version of events, the truth. This alignment is a profound source of strength. It means that no one can expose you or blackmail you with your own actions because you have nothing to hide. Your reputation is not a carefully constructed performance. It is a natural byproduct of your character and is therefore much more durable and authentic. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of the peace that comes from this unwavering commitment to right action. He wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." This direct command cuts through all possible moral ambiguity. It's a simple, binary filter for every decision and every word. You don't need a complex ethical framework to debate. You just need to apply this test. Is this action right? Is this statement true? If the answer is no, you don't do it and you don't say it. The immense freedom in this is that it removes the temptation to negotiate with yourself, to rationalize a small wrong because it serves a larger goal. That kind of negotiation is a slippery slope that always leads to more complexity and more need for external validation to quiet your own internal discomfort. Choosing the simple, right thing every time keeps your inner world clean and your conscience clear. Consider the tangible difference between a life of honesty and one of convenient falsehoods. Imagine two employees working on a team project. The first makes a significant error that could delay their deliverable. Panicked about looking incompetent, they decide to cover it up. They blame a system glitch, fudge some numbers, and tell their manager everything is on track. Instantly, they have created a web of needs. They need their manager to not look too closely. They need their teammates to not discover the truth. They need to remember the exact details of their lie in case they are questioned. Every interaction about the project is now laced with anxiety. Every email from the boss is a potential threat. The stress is constant because their security depends on maintaining a fiction they do not control. Now picture the second employee. They make the same error. They feel the same initial jolt of panic, but they apply the Stoic filter. Hiding it is not right, lying about it is not true. They immediately go to their manager, take full responsibility, and present a clear plan for how they will fix the mistake and get back on schedule. The moment they do this, they release that burden. They might face a difficult conversation, but they have no cover-up to maintain. Their need for their manager's approval is replaced by a commitment to their own integrity. The situation is a practical problem to be solved, not an existential threat to their carefully crafted image. Their energy can go entirely into solving the problem, not into managing perceptions. This principle applies to far more than just grand ethical dilemmas. It shows up in the tiny, daily choices that define our character. It's about returning the extra change when a cashier makes a mistake, not gossiping about a colleague to fit in with a group, or honestly reporting your hours worked instead of rounding up. Each time you choose the integral path, you are strengthening your self-respect and weakening your dependency on external approval. You are proving to yourself that your worth is not determined by never making a mistake, but by how you handle yourself when you do. The person who can admit a fault is far stronger and more self-sufficient than the person who must always appear perfect. So where in your own life might a small compromise be creating a large amount of hidden complexity? I want you to identify one single area where practicing a little more integrity could bring you a lot more peace. Maybe it's a commitment you made half-heartedly and are now quietly hoping will be forgotten. Perhaps it's an exaggeration you tend to repeat about your past accomplishments to make yourself seem more impressive. It could be as simple as not speaking up when you know something is wrong, just to avoid a moment of social discomfort. Pick one, then make the conscious choice to align that action with truth. Clear the debt, correct the record. You will be amazed at how much mental space and energy is freed up when you stop tending to that one little patch of weeds in your garden and can instead simply enjoy the flowers. The Stoics took this idea from theory into direct physical practice. They would periodically engage in what we might call voluntary poverty, deliberately stripping away their comforts and luxuries to reconnect with the bare essentials of life. A wealthy senator like Seneca would purposefully wear old clothes, sleep on a hard bed, and live on plain bread and water for days at a time. This wasn't a form of self-punishment or a dramatic gesture. It was a calculated psychological exercise. By temporarily imposing scarcity upon themselves, they were able to recalibrate their sense of normalcy and shatter the illusion that their happiness was dependent on their external conditions. They discovered that the mind, when freed from the constant chatter of wanting, could find a profound and unexpected richness in simplicity itself. This practice allowed them to truly value their non-material wealth, their character, their friendships, their ability to reason assets that no market crash could ever devalue. This deliberate embrace of lack offers a surprising array of psychological benefits that are just as relevant today. When we occasionally step into a state of scarcity, we essentially hit the reset button on our appreciation. Think about the simple pleasure of a cool glass of water after a long, hot day without it. That water tastes infinitely more satisfying than the 10th glass you mindlessly sip at your desk. Scarcity sharpens our senses and forces us into the present moment, making us truly notice and savor what we have. Furthermore, it is a powerful catalyst for resourcefulness. When options are limited, creativity flourishes. You learn to repair instead of replace, to improvise with what's on hand, and to discover hidden uses for ordinary objects. This process builds immense self-confidence, proving to you that you are capable and adaptable, that you can handle less and still not just survive, but find joy and innovation within those new constraints. Seneca, who understood both extreme wealth and self-imposed lack, captured this transformative potential perfectly. He wrote, "Poverty adjusted to the law of nature is great wealth." Let's unpack that profound statement. The law of nature refers to our actual needs: adequate nourishment, shelter, security, and human connection. When we align our desires with these fundamental requirements, we step off the exhausting treadmill of artificial wanting. The great wealth he speaks of is the immense mental and emotional fortune that comes with that alignment. The peace of not being perpetually anxious about losing what you have, the freedom of not being enslaved to endless acquisition, and the deep gratitude that arises from truly appreciating the simple, abundant gifts that are already available to you. A person who has little but needs even less is, in the Stoic sense, truly rich. We can see this principle living and breathing in the modern minimalist movement. Many people who consciously choose to own fewer possessions report a surprising sensation. They often feel wealthier than they did when they had more. An accumulator might own a closet full of clothes yet still feel they have nothing to wear, trapped in a cycle of choice paralysis and seasonal dissatisfaction. A minimalist with a small, curated capsule wardrobe experiences the ease of getting dressed and a genuine appreciation for each well-made, favorite item they own. The accumulator's wealth is tied up in dormant objects that demand space, maintenance, and mental energy. The minimalist's wealth is experienced as daily liberation, less time spent cleaning, organizing, and deciding, and more time and money available for experiences, relationships, and passions. Their abundance isn't stored in their attic. It's felt in the spaciousness of their schedule and the clarity of their mind. This is an insight you can test for yourself through a direct, personal experiment. I encourage you to intentionally create a small, controlled experience of scarcity in one area of your life for a short period. This isn't about deprivation, it's about discovery. One of the most impactful places to start in our modern world is with a digital fast. Choose 24 hours this weekend to completely disconnect from all non-essential digital consumption. Turn off all notifications, leave your phone in another room, and resist the pull of social media, news sites, and streaming services. Initially, you will likely feel that familiar itch of boredom, that sense of missing out. But sit with that feeling, let it pass. Then, notice what emerges to fill that vacant space. You might find yourself picking up a book you've been meaning to read, having a long, uninterrupted conversation with a family member, going for a walk and actually noticing the world around you, or simply enjoying the quiet hum of your own thoughts. This small taste of digital scarcity will likely reveal a hidden abundance of time, attention, and mental quiet that you didn't realize you had. It's a practical way to experience the Stoic truth that having less of one thing can often mean gaining so much more of what truly matters. This brings us to a profound aspect of the Stoic life that might seem counterintuitive at first: the vital importance of community. If the goal is to need less from others, does that mean we should retreat into isolation? Absolutely not. The Stoics were deeply engaged citizens, friends, and family members. The key distinction they made, and it's a crucial one, is between interdependence and dependency. Interdependence is the beautiful, voluntary exchange of support, wisdom, and camaraderie between self-sufficient individuals. It's a choice, not a necessity. Dependency, on the other hand, is a state of neediness where we use others as a crutch for our own emotional stability, self-worth, or material survival. Stoicism encourages us to build the former by first cultivating the latter within ourselves. We can see this contrast clearly in how we often approach networking versus how we approach true friendship. Toxic networking is fundamentally transactional. It's a calculated game of exchanging business cards and favors, where people are viewed as assets to be used for career advancement. Conversations are strategic, the underlying question always being, what can this person do for me? These connections are fragile, lasting only as long as the mutual utility does. The moment the value dries up, the relationship often vanishes. It's a form of social interaction rooted in lack, a feeling that you need these connections to be successful, which puts you in a perpetual state of indebtedness and anxiety. Genuine, virtue-based connection, however, operates on a completely different frequency. It begins with two whole people coming together, not to complete each other, but to share their completeness. The foundation isn't what you can get from the other person, but a mutual admiration for each other's character. You connect because you appreciate their wisdom, their integrity, their courage, or their kindness. The relationship is its own reward. The Stoic teacher Musonius Rufus, who placed great emphasis on practical living, spoke directly to this idea. He taught that genuine friendship must be based on a shared commitment to virtue and character, not on superficial utility or pleasure. He argued that a friend prized for their wealth, status, or ability to do you favors is not a true friend at all, but a temporary resource that will disappear when those external conditions change. A friendship grounded in mutual respect for each other's character, however, is unshakable. It is a bond between two people who act as mirrors for each other's growth, who encourage each other to live more virtuously, and who offer support not out of obligation, but from a genuine desire to see the other flourish. This creates a relationship that is both deeply connected and remarkably free, because neither person is clinging to the other for their basic sense of worth. Imagine a community built on this Stoic principle. Picture a local group of artists, entrepreneurs, or gardeners. In a transactional community, support is conditional. Help is offered with an unspoken expectation of repayment. Advice is given to create a sense of indebtedness. There's a constant, low-level scorekeeping. Now envision a community where everyone has done their inner work. Each individual is secure in their own worth and capabilities. In this environment, support flows freely and generously. A seasoned gardener gives cuttings to a beginner without any thought of what they'll get in return, simply for the joy of sharing their passion. An experienced business owner offers mentorship to a newcomer, not to gain a protege, but because they believe in supporting virtue and hard work. When a member faces a setback, the community rallies not out of pity, but with a calm, resilient confidence in that person's ability to overcome it. The help is offered without strings and received without a loss of dignity, because it is seen as a natural expression of shared humanity, not a transaction that creates a power imbalance. This is a community where people give because they are full, not because they are fishing for a return. This shift in how we relate to others starts with a shift in how we see ourselves. The most powerful thing you can do to improve your relationships is to become more self-sufficient. When you are no longer desperate for others to validate your choices, approve of your lifestyle, or soothe your anxieties, you show up in a completely different way. You can listen more deeply because you're not mentally rehearsing your own defense or crafting your next impressive comment. You can offer constructive feedback without fear of the relationship ending because your security isn't tied to their approval of you. You can celebrate a friend's success without a hint of envy because their win doesn't feel like your loss. Your presence becomes a gift, calm, attentive, and undemanding. So how do you begin to build these kinds of relationships in your own life? It starts with an honest audit of your current connections. Look at your friendships, your professional network, even your family dynamics. Ask yourself a simple but revealing question. Are these relationships primarily based on mutual utility and need, or on mutual respect and admiration for character? You don't need to end relationships that feel transactional, but you can begin to gently shift your own role within them. Start by being the person who gives without keeping score. Offer your help freely with no expectation of anything in return. Practice giving genuine, virtue-based compliments. Praise someone for their patience in a difficult situation, their honesty in a tricky conversation, or their courage in taking a risk. By initiating this shift in the currency of your interactions, you naturally attract others who operate on the same frequency. You stop building a network of contacts and start cultivating a community of character, where every connection is a choice, not a need. Think about the most powerful force in finance, one that turns small, consistent actions into staggering results over time: compound interest. You don't simply add a fixed amount each year. You earn interest on your interest, creating exponential growth from patient, steady deposits. Now apply that exact same principle to your character. This is the profound long-term game the Stoics invite us to play. Every time you choose patience over anger, courage over comfort, or integrity over a cheap win, you aren't just solving a single problem. You are making a deposit into your inner bank of virtue, and just like financial interest, these deposits compound. The patience you practiced yesterday makes it slightly easier to choose patience again today. The courage you found last month builds the muscle memory for a bigger challenge next year. You are earning interest on your own character, and the returns are paid out in a currency of unshakable resilience, deep peace, and a wisdom that cannot be rushed. This entire philosophy requires a radical shift in how we measure progress. Our modern world is obsessed with quick wins and instant gratification. We chase the dopamine hit of a like, the immediate payoff of a shortcut, the fleeting high of a new purchase. Stoicism asks us to lift our gaze from these short-term spikes and focus on the long, steady, upward trajectory of our inner development. The goal is not to feel good right now, but to become good, truly good, over a lifetime. This means valuing the slow, often invisible work of building character above the flashy, but ultimately hollow, rewards of external validation. It's the difference between being a day trader, frantically reacting to every market fluctuation, and being a long-term investor, quietly confident in the fundamental value of your holdings despite daily volatility. The Stoic is the ultimate long-term investor in themselves. Seneca, in his letters, beautifully captures this gradual, cumulative nature of wisdom. He writes, "As is a story, so is life. Not how long it is, but how good it is what matters." But he doesn't stop there. He emphasizes that this goodness is built moment by moment, choice by choice. In another passage, he notes, "Time discovers truth." He is pointing to the fact that true understanding and solid character are not revealed in a single brilliant moment, but are unearthed and polished over the long, patient stretch of time. It is a daily practice of applying reason, of choosing virtue, of reflecting on your mistakes. You won't always see the growth day to day, just as you can't watch a tree grow. But look back over a year or 5 years, and the change in your landscape of character can be breathtaking. To see this in action, let's contrast two different approaches to life. Imagine one person who is constantly chasing quick rewards. They hop from one get-rich-quick scheme to the next, looking for that one big break. They jump from job to job, always chasing a slightly higher salary without considering the quality of the work or the alignment with their values. In their personal life, they seek intense but short-lived pleasures, avoiding any discomfort or difficult emotional work. Their life is a series of sharp peaks and deep valleys, always searching for the next external thing to make them feel complete. Now picture a second person playing the long-term Stoic game. They choose a career path that allows them to develop mastery and contribute meaningfully, even if the starting pay is modest. They invest in deep, reliable friendships that require effort and vulnerability, but yield immense trust and support over decades. They embrace challenges as training, understanding that the frustration of learning a new skill today will pay dividends in confidence and capability for years to come. Their life is not a series of dramatic spikes, but a steady, upward-sloping line of inner growth. When a storm hits, the first person has no root structure and is easily toppled. The second person stands firm, held upright by the deep, strong roots of character they have been cultivating their entire life. This isn't about judging one path or another. It's about recognizing which one leads to enduring strength and which one leads to perpetual fragility. The long game is about trust in the process. Trust that these small, virtuous choices are adding up to something monumental, even when you can't see it. It's about understanding that the most valuable things in life, wisdom, resilience, deep love, inner peace, cannot be acquired quickly. They must be grown, and growth always requires time, patience, and consistent care. So how do you start playing this long game today? It begins with a single, intentional decision that looks far into your future. I want you to set one long-term, virtue-based goal for yourself. Don't think about a material target like buying a car or getting a promotion. Think in terms of character. Perhaps your goal is to become a more patient parent over the next 5 years, actively working to respond with calm guidance instead of reactive frustration. Maybe it's to cultivate the courage to start your own virtuous business within the next 3 years, one that aligns with your values rather than just maximizing profit. It could be to develop the wisdom and self-discipline to achieve financial independence in 10 years, not for early retirement, but for the freedom to dedicate your time to your community and your passions. Choose one virtue: courage, justice, temperance, or wisdom, and attach it to a long-term vision for your life. Write it down. Then, each day, ask yourself, what is one small deposit I can make today toward that long-term goal? That single question will transform your daily choices from reactive impulses into purposeful investments in the person you are destined to become. Acknowledging the powerful pull of modern consumer culture is the first step toward building a life of stoic resilience. It's like recognizing the strength of a current before you learn to swim against it. We are bombarded by thousands of advertisements daily. Our attention is fractured by endless notifications, and we're often made to feel that we are perpetually behind, that we need the next upgrade, the next trend, the next purchase to finally be enough. This environment doesn't just encourage neediness, it actively manufactures it. But here's the empowering truth the Stoics offer: you are not powerless against this tide. You can build your own levee, not through drastic, unsustainable overhaul, but through small, consistent, and deeply practical daily actions that reclaim your attention, your time, and your peace. Let's translate this ancient philosophy into actionable, modern defenses. First, consider the practice of digital minimalism. This isn't just about spending less time on your phone. It's about conducting a ruthless audit of what you allow into your mind. Start by turning off all non-essential notifications. Every ping is a tiny request for your attention, a small vote for distraction. Then, curate your digital feeds with the same intention you would curate a guest list for your home. Unfollow accounts that trigger envy or a sense of lack, and mute topics that breed anxiety. This isn't about hiding from the world. It's about protecting the sanctity of your inner citadel from the endless siege of irrelevant information. Next, apply the principle of mindful spending. Before any purchase that isn't a true necessity, institute a mandatory 24-hour waiting period. This simple pause creates a crucial gap between the impulse and the action, allowing your rational mind to catch up to your emotional desire. In that space, ask yourself the Stoic questions: is this within my control? Do I need this or simply want it? Will this purchase genuinely contribute to my virtue and tranquility, or is it a temporary fix for a deeper restlessness? This practice transforms spending from an automatic reaction into a conscious choice, aligning your financial resources with your deepest values instead of your fleeting whims. Another powerful tool is time blocking, a method that treats your attention as the finite, precious resource that it is. Rather than letting your day be dictated by external demands and distractions, deliberately schedule blocks of time for your deepest priorities. Block out time for focused work, for reading and reflection, for physical activity, and for genuine connection with loved ones. During these blocks, guard your focus fiercely. This is a practical application of the dichotomy of control. You cannot control every interruption, but you can control your structure and your commitment to it. By intentionally designing your day, you move from being passive to being proactive, ensuring your time is spent on what truly matters, not on what simply shouts the loudest. The Stoic teacher Epictetus always focused on the attainable, gave us perfect guidance for this journey when he said, "If you seek tranquility, do less." But he clarifies that this isn't about being lazy, It's about doing less of what is ultimately meaningless. He continues, do only what is essential. Which brings a double satisfaction: to do less better. This is the core of it. It's about subtracting the trivial many to focus on the essential few in your possessions, your commitments, and your digital life. To truly feel the transformative power of this subtraction, I challenge you to a 30-day decluttering challenge. But let's expand the definition of clutter beyond just physical objects. For 30 days, commit to removing one item each day from your physical space. A piece of clothing you never wear, a kitchen gadget that gathers dust, a book you'll never read again. But also, declutter your mind and your schedule. Each day, delete one unused app from your phone, unsubscribe from one promotional email list, and say no to one non-essential commitment that doesn't align with your values. After just 1 week, you will feel a tangible sense of lightness and space, both in your home and in your mind. This process isn't about creating a barren environment. It's about creating a curated one, where every object, every commitment, and every bite of information has a purpose and brings value to your life. The thought of integrating all of these practices at once can feel overwhelming, which is precisely why we must start small, as Epictetus advised. The grand architecture of a Stoic life is built one single, deliberate brick at a time. So instead of trying to change everything today, I invite you to make one single choice. Look at the practices we've discussed: digital minimalism, mindful spending, time blocking, or the decluttering challenge, and select just one. Not the one you think you should do, but the one that most deeply resonates with a specific friction you feel in your daily life. Commit to practicing that one thing, and only that one thing, for the next week. Notice the subtle shifts in your mood, your focus, and your sense of freedom. That small victory will generate the momentum and the confidence to then add another brick, and then another, until you have built a life not of deprivation, but of profound and intentional abundance. So we've journeyed through the heart of Stoic wisdom, from the inner citadel to the art of voluntary discomfort, from cognitive detachment to the profound power of knowing what is enough. The thread connecting all these principles is a single, counterintuitive truth: that needing less from the world is the ultimate source of resilience, freedom, and what the Stoics would call a true victory. This isn't a philosophy of deprivation, it's a philosophy of liberation. It's about systematically untying your sense of self from the shaky pillars of external fortune, money, status, opinions, outcomes, and anchoring it instead to the unshakable bedrock of your own character. When you do this, you become like a tree with deep roots. The winds of change may blow, but they cannot uproot you. Your peace is no longer contingent on everything going right, because your peace was never stored out there to begin with. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor who reminded himself that very little is needed to make a happy life, discovered that immense power lies in the simplicity of our wants. Seneca, who saw that he is richest who is content with the least, revealed that wealth is a state of mind, not a number in a bank account. And Epictetus, who taught that we suffer not from events, but from our judgments about them, gave us the key to unlocking a freedom that can never be taken away. These aren't just ancient quotes, they are practical, timeless blueprints for building a life of unshakable strength. They teach us that winning isn't about accumulating the most trophies, but about cultivating a mind that cannot be defeated by loss, a spirit that finds joy in the effort itself, and a heart that is content with what is already present. This brings us to a final, reflective question to carry with you. What if winning in your own life stopped being about having more and started being about wanting less? What if the ultimate measure of success was the quiet confidence that comes from self-sufficiency, the resilience to handle any curveball, and the freedom to enjoy the present moment without anxiously grasping for the next one. This shift in perspective can redefine everything. The goal is not to reject the world, but to engage with it from a place of wholeness rather than neediness. To contribute, create, and connect not because you have to, but because you choose to with a full and generous heart. The real work begins now after this video ends. I encourage you not to try and change everything at once, but to choose just one single principle we discussed and apply it this week. Maybe it's practicing a small voluntary discomfort to build resilience. Perhaps it's performing a nightly review of your desires. It could be as simple as identifying one area where you seek external validation and consciously deciding your self-worth is not up for debate. Start small, but start. True philosophy is not just something we know, it's something we do, something we live. I would love to hear about your experiences in the comments below. What one insight resonated most with you? What small step are you going to take? Your journey might just inspire someone else to begin their own. If you found value in exploring this Stoic path to a more resilient and free life, please consider subscribing for more wisdom to help you navigate the modern world with ancient clarity. Thank you.